went down there and everybody's, oh, it's full now. Yeah, sure. Just go look it up.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for Thursday, June the 23rd. Appreciate having everybody here today. Thanks for coming down to City Hall. Before we get started, just a couple of announcements. If you would, please turn your cell phones to silent. That way it doesn't interrupt the meeting. We would be grateful for that. And also, if you have never been here before and you want to be heard on an item today and you weren't told, out front are these little white sheets of paper. And you can fill one of these out and hand them to staff up here, and we will call on you at the appropriate time and let you come up and speak. We give all of our visitors and guests 5 minutes to be heard. We do reserve the right to cut comments off if they're redundant or not on topic or something of that nature. But we're glad you're here, and with that, we'll get started. So our first order of business is to receive the minutes of the June 9th, 2022 meeting. And if there's no discussion from my fellow planning commissioners, I'd take a motion on the receipt of those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we receive the minutes of the June 9th, 2022 meeting.
Okay, I have a motion, and I'll take the second on PrimeGov. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Powers. All votes should be cast. And those minutes are received. Commissioner,
Aye. I vote aye.
okay, Commissioner Govine, it reflects on our screen that he didn't vote. Can we get that corrected?
Oh, give me 1 minute.
Okay, no problem. The record will reflect Commissioner Govine voted to receive those minutes, so it passed with 6 votes. Next item on the agenda today are continuance requests. We have a number of previously published continuances. Mr. Butler?
Yes, item 30, case C-7410, deferred to July 14th. Item 31, case C-7435, deferred to July 14th also. Item 32, case PC-10811 has been withdrawn, and item 33, case PUD-1894 has also been withdrawn.
Okay, those items are up on the screen in front of you. Is there anybody who wanted to be heard on one of those items today? Excellent. If there's no discussion from commissioners on any of those, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the uncontested continuance requests as read.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the continuance request as read. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And those items are approved. Next item, I believe we have one new request that I'm aware of. Mr. Butler, you want to read that one?
Yes, this is item 16, SPUD 1417. The request is to defer to July 14th.
Is there anybody who wanted to be heard on item 16 today, SPUD 1417? All right. If there's no discussion on that from commissioners, I'll take a motion on that continuance.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the continuance request for item 16 as read.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the continuance. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. Now all votes are cast. And that item is continued. That's all the continuance requests I have. I'm not aware of any other items. So with that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our consent docket. We have 6 items on our consent docket today. Mr. Butler, you want to read those for us?
Yes, item 1 is case C-7449, final plat of Rockwell Creek Industrial Park, located north of West Reno Avenue and east of North Rockwell Avenue. Item 2 is case C-7451, final plat of Harris Creek, located north of Northwest 150th Street and west of North Sarah Road. Item 3 is case DA 26855, application for consideration of a lot split deed approval on property located at 18924 Grove Parkway. Item 4 is case PC 10820, application to rezone 11910 Southeast 44th Street from AA to RA2. Item 5, case PC 10821, application to rezone 1400 Northwest 112th Street from R1 to R2. And item 6, Case PC 10823, application to rezone 5211 South Morgan Road from AA to R1.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Is there anybody who wanted to be heard on any of those items today? All right. Seeing nobody, if there's no discussion from commissioners on any of those items on the consent docket, I would take a motion on that docket as read.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent docket as read.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the consent docket. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Thank you very much. Please cast your votes. And those items are approved or recommended, therefore. Next item on our agenda today is items requiring separate vote, and our first item there is item 7. Mr. Butler.
This is PC 10824, application to rezone 2217 Southeast 59th Street from R1 and RMH2 to RMH2.
Is the applicant present? Yeah, please come up. Start out by giving us your name and address for the record, please, and then tell us what we need to know about this item.
David A. Duddle, you want my mailing address or the address up here?
It'd be your address, sir, just for the purposes of the record.
12008 Remington Road.
Okay.
This property has all been zoned mobile home park for 40 years, except for the little part out front. The property right behind it and to the west are both mobile home parks already. There's a mobile home park on the south side of it. The property on the east side is owned by a landfill company, and so the people behind it are wanting to buy this and extend their mobile home park up.
Understood. It's a straightforward application, at least from my perspective. Commissioner Privet, this is his ward. He's not
Right.
here today. So I'll just note for the purposes of the record that we're told by staff that basically the proposal would rezone the entire site to the RMH2 district, consistent with the zoning to the north and to the west, which you can see that's presented on the map there. And then what you referred to as the landfill is there to the south, which you can see visibly as well. So I don't have any objection to this. I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Is there anybody who wants to be heard on PC 10824? Okay, and if there's no discussion from commissioners on this one, I just need a motion on the item from somebody in Commissioner Privet's absence.
I'll step in and make a motion to approve PC 10824.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10824 by Commissioner Hinkle. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. All votes should be cast. Okay, Commissioner Fraley's voted aye, so all votes should be cast now, and that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with your project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda today is item number 8. Mr. Butler.
This is case PUD SP 1799A, application for a specific plan pursuant to the application of PUD 1799. Location is 1101 South Morgan Road.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. This is an application for a portion of 2 PUDs that were approved several years back. This is the first phase of the multifamily development. It meets all the requirements in the PUD. We're happy to answer any questions, but we'd ask for your approval.
Appreciate that. Mr. Zitzow, Commissioner Fraley, this is in your ward, ma'am. Do you have comments or questions on this for the applicant? I will just note for your benefit and for the purposes of the record that staff's review of the specific plan for the development indicates the proposal is consistent with PUD 1799, the master development statement, and the master development plan.
I do have 1 or 2 questions. So this phase 1 part, when I look at, will you go to the next drawing? So when I look at how it's going to connect into the development on the west, I don't see any roads connecting into the development on the west, which I believe was required in the previous PUDs that were approved.
Yes, so the connection is going to occur, so you come in off the main entrance and you see it kind of splits around the common area and amenities. Those 2 drives on the north and south of the centerpiece ultimately will go west. That's how the western portion will develop, as well as a road that will go up to Southwest 8th Street.
Okay, north and south of proposed building number 5?
4 and 5, yes.
Okay. Then there were comments on fencing and privacy fencing. No screening shall be required, but then an 8-foot privacy fence will be required. So are you guys planning on that in this phase or in future phases?
So it's in the future phase. Those agreements were made in the PUD immediately to the west because it abutted the residential. So we had several meetings with that neighborhood, and there were separate agreements made in PUD 1716 for buffers, landscaping, and fencing. And so we're not quite at that point yet. So that future fencing will be on the south and the west of the next phase.
Okay. That is all I had.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody who wanted to be heard today on PUD SP 1799A? Okay, if there's no further questions from my fellow commissioners, I think we'll take a motion if you're ready to make it.
I make a motion to recommend approval of PUD SP 1799A.
Okay, I have a motion to approve PUD SP 1799A. This is a specific plan item, so we're going to be the final arbiter of this one. But I have a motion to approve it. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast, and that item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Next item on our agenda today is item 9.
This is case PC 10822, application to rezone 17800 Northwestern Avenue from PUD 1072 to C3.
Good afternoon, Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. This is the southeast corner of 178th and Western. It is the last remaining undeveloped corner at this site. We are requesting C3. Staff recommends approval. We would ask for your approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Grubbs. This is a Ward 8 item, so I'll lead the discussion here. I did take a look at this. I looked carefully in particular at that southeast corner and looked at an aerial and stuff. I didn't drive it, to be fair, but I did look at it carefully. I don't see that there's going to be any issue there with anything that would need to be done like we would normally, do buffers and things of that nature because of how the site sets up and what it's adjacent to. So I don't have any questions or objections on this. I'm not aware of any public concern, and I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Do my fellow commissioners have any thoughts or concerns on this one? Okay. So is there anybody who does want to be heard on PC 10822? Okay, well, seeing nobody, I can't make a motion to recommend approval to City Council, but if I could, I would. So I'd appreciate
Mr. Chairman,
someone
I
could do it.
move that we recommend approval of PC 10822.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle's, my guess. She's getting it. Paula's on it. She's a professional. She's highly trained. Please cast your votes. And that item is recommended for approval. Next item is item 10.
This is case CE 1074, application to close the west 7 feet of the east 15-foot north-south utility easement of Lot 15, Block 6 of Highland Point Phase 1, located at 2502 Northwest 129th Street.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. The request before you is to close, and then ultimately what we seek to do is vacate a portion of the utility easement in which a portion of the home that is existing was built upon. I have been talking to Barry Lodge, and there are 2 TEs. TE number 2 we are good with. TE number 1, what we're going to ask to do is modify it slightly in a manner that I have prepared. What we'd ask TE1 to be read as is a perpetual easement to the portion of the platted utility easement to be closed will be reserved to the minimum extent necessary for access to and maintenance of the public utilities currently located within the platted utility easement as identified by the survey conducted pursuant to TE2, except that the portion of the home that is within the UE will not be required to retain any perpetual easement. And
There's a
I will
400
provide that
character
to
limit
staff.
on TEs, Barry Lodge.
I don't think there's a character limit. I checked. So we will provide that to staff if you'd like, but unless Barry tells me I'm lying, I think we're good with that.
I think he said what we had discussed, so that that amendment to the TE.
Got it.
Is
We'll take
acceptable.
that as having been read into the record and submitted to staff. Is that correct, Mr. Box?
Yeah, unless you want to try to read it back.
I'll pass.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward, sir. Do you have other questions or concerns on this one?
No, as long as you've read it, you've read what David wrote.
I haven't read it in written form, but David and I did discuss that right before the
You
meeting.
want to take a quick look while we do the procedural things, just to be
Yeah, if he's
sure
got it
we're
written
all in
down, I will take a
agreement?
look at it, and then we can say, yeah, that's great.
Not that I'm saying I don't trust David's writing about it. I'm sure it's well-written, David.
Oh,
I
it's
tried my best to try to write it.
very well
but,
written.
You know.
Yes, that is acceptable as it was read.
Then I have no questions.
Okay. I'll ask if there's anybody who wants to be heard on CE 1074 out of an abundance of caution. Seeing nobody, if there's no further discussion on it, Commissioner Pennington, I'll take a motion if you'd like to make it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve CE 1074.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval on CE 1074. It has been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast, and that item is recommended for approval. Next item is item 11.
This is case SPUD 1432, application to rezone 4420 Northwest 10th Street from C3 and R1 to SPUD 1432.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Emma Salanik, and this is my husband.
Francisco Salanik.
We were here before. We're trying to rezone 4420 on 10th Street from, I think it was to industrial, but we got continued because we really did not need industrial. So we came up with the SPUD so we can have the body shop and the auto sales.
Got it. Well, we're glad to have you guys back. Welcome. This is a Ward 3 case, so Commissioner Fraley, I'll let you lead our discussion on it if you have questions for the applicant.
Actually, this is the one, am I on or off? On. This is the one that Commissioner Claire and I arm wrestled for because it started before Commissioner Fraley was
Fair.
with us.
Yep.
So Sarah Welch was so kind to help me with this one, and we have met a couple of times with the applicants. We've arm wrestled through the layout of the new site. There were some sort of last minute issues raised. Is there somebody else here who wants to be heard on this matter?
This, and just for the benefit, this is SPUD 1432. Here's not.
I thought that would let them speak for themselves. Somebody had submitted a concern letter about it, someone who lives south of here.
Yep.
And has some respiratory issues and was concerned about the paint and all that. I was remembering another case that I had in my ward some time ago where a paint booth butted right up against residential property, and I reached out to Mr. Box because he was the representative in that case. He referred me to Mr. Chambliss. What I recall from that is that currently the standards for these things, this will be built from scratch. It's not an old, existing, worn out, it'll be new, it'll be state-of-the-art. And what I was remembering is that now these things are constructed in such a way that nothing escapes from them in terms of fumes or chemicals or anything like that. Plus, the person who submitted the letter lives south, and of course the prevailing wind in Oklahoma is always from the south to the north. So I'm not overly concerned about that. If they were here, I would certainly want to hear from them themselves. But
I know what letter you're referring to. It was included in our packets, and I reviewed it as well. So
there were some bits and pieces to this that had to be stitched together, but with staff's help, I think we've gotten there, and I would be ready to move for approval of this.
was there discussion around the 8300.69 use unit of spectator sports and entertainment? Is that needed to be included? Because that's in there, and then lodging accommodations, commercial lodging is also in there too. I mean, it's a small site, but if those use units aren't necessary, I'd like to strike them, or I would.
I had eliminated a bunch of these. Come.
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. Yeah, we went through most of the uses, but if those, do you think you'll ever want to have a hotel or a indoor
No, it's
gym,
outdoor. That's the part
outdoor.
that scares me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't speak on their behalf, but knowing their plan for the site, I wouldn't think that would be an issue to delete those uses.
I want to make sure, are you,
We're just trying to have a body shop and a retail shop, nothing else.
well, then we don't need to have concerts, so we'll be good.
We were trying to be, we were starting from the C3 that they have already.
Understood. Well, if we could strike those two use units, that's the only concern I had in the whole thing. So,
Well, it wasn't the only concern I had in the whole thing. One of the things that they have requested is the ability to sell cars, the cars that they take in and that are repaired and repainted and all that kind of stuff. But we very much limited the amount of square footage that they're allowed to devote to that use so that they can do what they need to do with it, but it's not going to become an auto dealership. And there were a few other things. I'm sure that we have all this incorporated by now, don't we?
what you're referring to was in our packet item.
Okay.
It's the automotive and equipment, 8300.18, automotive dealerships and malls is limited to the north 100 feet of the SPUD boundary, which is along 10th Street, which is why I thought that made sense.
Right. Okay. Anybody else?
If there's no other concerns, Commissioner Fraley, if you want to make a motion, or Commissioner Powers, either one, I'd take it.
I recommend approval of SPUD 1432.
And that would be adding TE1, which eliminates use units 8300.51 and 8300.69. Are you agreement with that?
I concur.
Okay. That is a motion to recommend approval to City Council, subject to the added technical evaluation. I'll take the second on Prime Gov when we get up here.
I will gladly second that.
Okay. We'll take that. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Thank you. Thank you. You were
All votes
delightful
should be
to work
cast.
with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with your project and your business. Next item on the agenda is item 12.
This is PUD 1900, application to rezone 3301 Harriet Street from AA Agricultural to PUD 1900.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. The PUD before you seeks to break this tract into two separate tracts, one of which on the west would have one home on 5 acres, and then on the east it would be a separate tract in which each structure would be required to have a minimum of 1 acre. So we've broken it into two tracts within the PUD. It is worth noting this area under the comprehensive plan is designated under urban low intensity. So in terms of a density standpoint, this is a significant reduction in density from what you might expect to see. The reason being there is no water or sewer in close proximity. We are well outside of what the subregs would require to extend. So what we're left with is a development plan that we think, although it's a change from what's there, significantly reduces what could otherwise be built there. It's worth noting too, south of Harriet Street, there is a large-scale commercial industrial project that is moving forward. It's already gone through Planning Commission. You guys recommended approval of that. It's what shows as AA. It's a large project that goes from Bryant all the way to the service road. So we believe it to be compatible. It's recommended for approval, and there's no technical evaluation. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate that, Mr. Box. Commissioner Pennington, this is your word, sir. And just so you're aware, I do have a couple people who are signed up to speak, but I'll let you ask your questions of the applicant.
I don't have any initial questions. We did, Mr. Box and I did speak already about this project, so I'd love to hear from the neighbors.
All right, let's do that. And I've got a couple people signed up, so if I mispronounce your name, it's not intentional, so please don't hold it against me. But Steve Chrisman?
Yes, sir. I'm Steve Chrisman of 3501 Marie Street. This area has been zoned for agricultural and residential for 50 years. They've tried to build in there before and have not been able to because of our dirt roads and our gravel won't handle the traffic. We only have 5 tenants that live within 300 acres, and we all oppose to this. And furthermore, it's been tried to be sold one time before as 2 lots, and it was disqualified back about 10 years ago. Also, the lots that are in the back are too small for septic tanks and wells. The lot in front, it's fine, the 5 acres. Besides that, we oppose the whole building of houses because it'll be an overcrowding of our roads, mainly. Because if it snows or rains or anything like that, it's one lane in, 1 lane out. You have to pull over. And furthermore, you can't even get an 18-wheeler down there to build or a big deuce snaft. So we'd appreciate this to be opposed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chrisman.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you coming down
Thanks
today.
for hearing
Can I
me.
ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, yeah, of course.
If the roads were taken care of, would that change your mind about this
Not really,
proposal?
because we have horses. You know, this is an agricultural residential area. Some of us have horses, some of us have animals and everything else. And we've been living in peace down there for years. Okay?
Gotcha.
Not, matter of fact, they've come down there and given us gravel some, but they can't widen it. The roads, you can't do a 2-lane. You can just 1 lane because the roads are so narrow. Because the boundary lines of all the property are right up on that 1 line. So I'd appreciate y'all looking into it for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chrisman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next person I've signed up to speak is, I believe it's Mitzi Bennett, if I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. I think I'm reading that right. How'd I do?
Mitzi Bennett, 10101 North Nancy Road. Not to reiterate or be redundant, but the traffic is the largest concern for me. There's a lot of times that we're backed up behind a trash truck or anybody doing deliveries, and you're going to increase this probably twofold with all of this housing that's back here. I'm the one that has the horses. I'm pulling a rig that's 40 foot long, and I'm getting backed up behind there. And we are the ones that maintain the road. Steve mows it, we take our tractors and we clear it. Nobody comes and clears it for us, even though it is a public road. So I'd like consideration, maybe a traffic study done before we do this, as well as any kind of consideration for the well and septic, because the water table is what it is, and we're all dealing with that. So we're growing our own food sometimes and using that for livestock. We'd like to have a consideration for that.
Understood. Thank you for coming down, Ms. Bennett. We appreciate it. Okay, that's the only 2 folks I've signed up to speak. So, Commissioner Pennington, your thoughts or comments?
Well, I think that as far as the septic tank issue, my understanding is that the law allows you to have a septic tank as long as it's on, it's 1 acre? Half an acre.
Half acre, yeah.
So as long as you have at least a half acre, you're allowed to have the septic tank. Would you address the issue as far as the infrastructure, the roads?
Real quickly, too, I think it's just worth noting that that's a state-issued deal from ODEQ, not from the city.
Yes.
Yeah.
State law, not.
What do you got over
not
there?
a city.
Dustin Seagraves, Utilities Department. It is by DEQ regulations for it, but since this has a well for potable water and a septic, it needs to be a minimum of 3/4 acres, and that is regulated by DEQ. And since these are 1 acre lots, it falls within that, but that is permitted through DEQ.
Thank you for clearing that up for us. We
by that.
appreciate it, as usual. Thank you.
So in terms of the infrastructure, this is a small-scale development. This is an acreage development. It's anticipated that this is kind of what you expect to see when you have small developments like this. What we're really asking for are 3 lots, right? It's around 10 acres. We could do 2 by right under the current zoning. So what we're really talking about is the addition of 3 lots. I don't believe the addition of 3 lots really creates a sizable problem. There were no letters submitted. I did speak to the gentleman that came to the podium. My contact information, he gave me a card. We will make ourselves available to go meet between now and City Council and try to find a way to come to an agreement if possible.
Well, I think all of that makes sense, but I take seriously what you're saying about how easy it is to navigate the neighborhood, since you'll have to live with it if this was decided. I think I also take seriously the fact that what this means, by right now, they can build 2 houses. So we really are just talking about the addition of 3. And as far as I can see in my staff report, as I quickly tried to look at it, the city staff also does an assessment of the traffic issues as well. I'm not seeing a note, and I know I had to look at it. I was trying to monitor quickly while listening to what our neighbor said, and I'm not seeing any objections from city staff as far as the street infrastructure as well. But clearly, there is a problem that needs to be addressed. So my recommendation is this. I think that we should, no matter whether we recommend approval of this application or not, it would still go to City Council in 6 weeks for their review. My recommendation is that between now and that we move it forward to City Council, and that between now and then we have some meetings with the attorney for the applicant, and I will personally work with you all so we can try to figure out what we can do to resolve this. I can assure you that Councilwoman Nice is someone who will be very concerned about making sure your issues have been addressed, and if we aren't ready to address those issues fully in 6 weeks when it goes to City Council, I can promise you she will send it back to the Planning Commission for further review. So if that's satisfactory, we will keep the conversation going.
Okay.
That's all I have. I'm ready to make a motion if we're good.
If other commissioners don't have comments on it, I think we'll take your motion if you'd like to make it.
Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend approval of PUD 1900.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1900. There are no TEs, so it's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval.
David, will your office reach out to, do you have contact information for
I
them?
have his card, and I gave him my cell phone as well, wherever he went.
And so will you make the arrangements?
Yes.
For us to, great, thank you.
I believe my assistant's watching, so.
Thank you, Erica.
Next item on our agenda today is item 13.
This is PUD 1901, application to rezone 2717 Watermark Boulevard from PUD 1577.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an application in an area that has seen a whole bunch of various rezonings over the years. My client submitted this initially as an I-2 base with a host of uses. Staff had some concerns. My client worked extensively with staff to whittle this down to uses that they believe to be appropriate and compatible, as well as changing the base to I-1. And a result of that is a very light scale, light industrial development. And now there's only one TE, which we agree to. So what you're likely to see is some form of office warehouse in this area. We think that to be compatible with what you would expect to see here. It's a strange lot. It's a narrow lot. So with that, we'd ask for your approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You are in agreement with the TE, right?
Yes, sir.
TE1, did you say that? Okay. Yeah, so this is a Ward 8 item. I looked at this. I was initially a little apprehensive about it just because of the amount of housing and things that are around it. This is kind of an infill site that's closer to May Avenue. And when I read through the uses and I read the language they included on the landscaping, which is section 9.2, along with the changes that staff recommends, which I agree were just kind of a linguistic correction. I don't have any issue with it. The uses are pretty limited. It does specifically prohibit, just noting this for my fellow commissioners, it does specifically prohibit outdoor storage. It's a pretty light use, which will be contained within the interiors of the building. So I don't know if anybody has questions or concerns on it that they want to voice. I don't have anybody sign up to speak either, and there were no letters of opposition submitted to us, but PUD 1901, did anybody want to be heard on that today? Okay. Any other concerns on this one from commissioners? All right, well, if there are none, I can't make the motion for recommending approval, but I would, and it is subject to TE1.
Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend approval of PUD 1901, subject to the 1 technical evaluation.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1901, seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. Commissioner Hinkle, there it is. And that item is recommended for approval. Thank you. Good luck with your project. Next item is item 14.
This is SPUD 1404, application to rezone 1138 through 1140 Northwest 1st Street from R3 and SPUD 906.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Jeremy Wilson, 1132 Northwest 56th Street. I have some renderings I'd like to pass out to you today.
You can just, if you want to, you can hand them, but we'll circulate them if you want to. You bet.
This is proposals to change moderate changes to the zoning. As you can see here, you got lot 24, 23, 22, and 21. To be able to put 4 houses on each one of those lots, I would have to ask in the development of the SPUD to change some of the requirements. It is off First and Klein. It is in the Ironworks district. There's 2 new development houses, same style, that are just directly west of there. And it's becoming an up-and-coming community for those style of homes. And I asked the commission to grant.
Okay, just making sure, did you give us your address, Mr. Wilson?
1132 Northwest 66th Street.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Govine, this is your ward, sir. Do you have questions or comments for the applicant?
I do not.
Okay. I just had one. My only question is, I just want to make sure I understood it correctly. 3 stories, max of 50 foot tall, may have a roof deck, terrace, or shade structures. We had a case in kind of the Midtown area, sort of, a while ago, and I'm trying to remember, is that in addition to the 3 stories? Is it the 3 stories and then you're allowed a deck? So is that correct? Or does the deck count as a story? I remember we had this debate on another case years ago.
An occupied roof does not count as a story.
But does it count within the height restriction?
It has to meet the height requirement, but it does not count as a story.
Got it. Okay. Got it. That's clear to me. Any other questions for commissioners? Anybody who wants to be heard today on SPUD 1404? Okay. If there's no further discussion, Commissioner Govine, I think if you're ready to make it, sir, we'll take a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move that we approve SPUD 1404.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1404. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Thank you. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with your project. Next item on the agenda is item 15.
This is SPUD 1408, application to rezone 1110 Northwest 56th Street from PUD 914.
Good afternoon. My name is Marshall Hamra. My address is 5623 Northwestern Avenue. The property is currently zoned within the PUD 02. We're actually asking within this SPUD to lessen the intensity to either with a general base of 01, so that we can do either a single-family residence or a small office building on the property, which we can currently do an office building as it is zoned right now. But essentially, we're just wanting to have the option to do either or. So if you have any questions.
Understood. Commissioner Powers, this is your ward, ma'am. Do you have questions?
Questions. We've had a time getting this here to be heard. The one issue that remains, it seems to me, based on our current staff report, is the setback on the west side. I feel confident that staff has the actual information. It was revised ages ago, and I know that we've gone through this and through this. So I'm comfortable making a motion. I know that we met with the neighbors in the Meadowbrook area. We were able to work this out very quickly and easily. We just had a hard time getting it heard for some reason. So I doubt very much that there's anybody here who wants to be heard, but we should ask.
Yep, I can do that. Is there anybody who'd like to be heard today on SPUD 1408?
The neighbors, the neighborhood sent a letter of support, and so I feel very, very confident making a motion to approve.
And there is one TE. You're in agreement with the TE?
Yes, the 12-foot
Yes.
setback? Okay, yep.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure that was clear.
So I make a motion to approve item number 15, SPUD 1408, subject to the technical evaluations.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1408, subject to the technical evaluation. It's been seconded by Commissioner Fraley. Thank you. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast, and that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with your project. Next item on the agenda is item 17. Item 16 was continued until July the 14th. Mr. Butler.
This is SPUD 1419, application to rezone 2141 and 2145 Northwest 30th Street from R1.
Good afternoon. Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an application that would allow for what are now 2 lots to be converted into a total of 4. There is an ability to have shared access. If you see the site plan, it appears that we're having some technical difficulties, which is fine. We have a kind of a strange little half block, which is Cashman Place to the north, which is not what you see there. There we are. So Cashman Place to the north is a bit of a half block. And so what we're seeking to do, similar to what you've seen in several other infill type projects, is reduce down the lot size of the single family requirement to allow some additional structures to be built. These structures would front Cashin, so they would share a drive similar to what you see as the existing condition along 30th Street. There are 2 TEs, both of which we agree to.
Okay. Commissioner Govine, this is your ward, sir. Do you have questions or comments for the applicant?
So it's actually Ward 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right.
Mislabel.
Yep.
I do not have any questions, though, but I'll hand over to Commissioner Powers.
Commissioner Powers, sorry about that.
Here, this is a much better solution than the current situation, which, because of the size of the houses, you know, ends up looking like they're just these 2 abandoned lots on the north side. So I think this is a great opportunity for infill, and I think this is a very good fit. I'm not surprised that there is no protest. I think this would probably be a net plus for for this area, for any of the neighbors looking south onto Cashin.
Are we concerned about which street these homes will affront? It says new homes will be oriented toward a street.
Plus, they might be oriented toward Barnes, I suppose, because
You could have the north
there
one,
are
yeah.
homes along there that are.
There are. That's what I was wondering. We usually have that conversation. I just thought that was.
I hadn't even thought about it until you said that, frankly. It's just, I think, important that they're oriented to a street. But
We will orient them to a street.
if they don't want to commit to orienting them to Cashin, that doesn't bother me.
Okay, that's fine with me. Okay, is there anybody who wants to be heard on SPUD 1419? Okay. Commissioners, any comments from anybody else? Seeing none, I'll take a motion from you, Commissioner Powers.
I move for approval, item number 17, SPUD 1419.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1419, subject to the 2 technical evaluations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. 1, 2, 3. All votes should be cast.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. That item is recommended for approval. Next item on the agenda is item 18.
This is SPUD 1416, application to rezone 2917 North Portland Avenue from C3.
Good afternoon, George Mendros, 5800 North Porter Avenue, Norman, Oklahoma. I believe we've coordinated a good game plan for this, and we're much better prepared now on the way to go. So to continue on with SPUD 1416.
Got it. Welcome back, Mr. Mendros. Commissioner Powers, this is your ward. I know you've been involved and been visiting, so questions or comments?
You know, initially I was really concerned about why we were doing this as an SPUD instead of as a special permit, partly just because it took us such an effort to get from using zoning to do alcohol regulation to using the process we have now, which would require a special permit. Part of it had to do with notice, and then there were some issues with the notice, but we were able to work all of that out. I'm completely satisfied. The end result where we are is not really any different than it would have been if we had gone through through the special permit process. It wouldn't have affected the outcome at all. I was in contact with a couple of the neighbors. They're satisfied with where we've ended up on this. I have some TEs for this that I'll read into the record. We've already amended the master design statement to incorporate all these, but just on the double suspenders and belt rule of making sure that we've got all of these in here. I've got a handful of TEs. I've provided those to staff. If you want me to read them into the record, I'll be more than happy to do it. we are going to do site-proof, TE1, site-proof screening shall be provided along the west property line. It wouldn't normally be required because the property is zone C3 also, but it's just an empty lot, and then there's a house on the other side of it, so we are going to include that on the west property line from the main structure to the street right-of-way. Not all the way down the west side, because the building itself is a blank wall, and it acts as a soundproof and site-proof buffer. The existing pole sign on the south, it's got one of those really, really old, you know, probably 30s, 40s pole signs. It's going to be permitted to remain so that they can refurbish it and utilize it if they choose to do so in the future. It'll not be internally lit.
Commissioner Powers, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just, staff handed me the revised master design statement for SPUD 1416 that includes these. I've provided a copy to Mr. Mendros, and I think legal counsel's comfortable if you just want to have Mr. Mendros agree that this memorializes your discussion.
Great.
Save you, yeah. So I gave you the document. I'm holding another copy of it.
Yes.
I don't know if you've had a chance to review it, but
Has that too.
yeah.
So.
Are you familiar with that and
I'm
all
very
those
familiar
changes?
with it,
And you're
yes.
comfortable with those changes?
Very comfortable.
So I think, according to municipal council, we can just admit this into the record to memorialize the TEs and changes. So we can just say as amended.
Okay.
And I think we'll be in good shape.
Perfect.
Great.
So-
Much easier. So I'm anxious to see if there's anybody else here who wants to be heard, although I doubt it very much.
Let's ask. Yeah, we've heard this a couple different times, but I want to make absolutely certain. Anybody here want to be heard on SPUD 1416? Nobody. Okay. I think we're in good shape.
Okay, I am ready to make a motion to approve item number 18, SPUD 1416, with lots of thanks to the applicant's representative, the applicant, and the owner of the current business that's going to be going in there, as well as staff. They were all a big help on this.
Yep. Thank you, and thank you for your patience with our process.
Thank
So
you.
we appreciate it. I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council of SPUD 1416, subject to the amended master design statement, which was submitted to the applicant, approved, and has been submitted in the record on its way to City Council. So with that, I'll take a second. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes.
I don't have a voting thing. Am I? Sorry.
All votes should be cast now. And that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with your project, sir. Next item on the agenda is item 19.
This is CE 979, application to close 329 feet of the public right-of-way and utility easement along the south boundary of Northwest Expressway and west of North Pennsylvania Avenue.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is what we believe to be the last piece of closings needed for the Oak development. You'll note in the staff report, it was continued 21 times before we finally just indefinitely continued it. We were working through some title issues on who the underlying owners were. We've now identified that. We are proceeding towards a closing, so we're now in a position to be able to move forward with again, what we hope to be the last piece of a very exciting project. You'll notice if you've been in the area, there's been a lot of activity with both clearing and utility relocation. You've already previously approved a specific plan for portions of the project, so things are moving forward. There are 2 TEs which we agree to.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Commissioner Powers, you're popular today. Any questions or comments for the applicant on this?
No, this is, as Mr. Box said, just, we've seen this before. This is just actually doing what we've been talking about doing for a long time. It's really exciting to see this moving forward. I can't wait.
Okay. Is there anybody who wants to be heard on CE 979? Seeing nobody, if there's no discussion from commissioners, I'll take a motion on the item, Commissioner Powers, subject to the 2 TEs.
Are we making a recommendation on this, or are we actually
We are
doing it?
No, we're making a recommendation.
Okay. I move approval of item 19, CE 979.
I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on CE 979, subject to the 2 technical evaluations. It's been seconded by, pause for effect, Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that item is recommended for approval. Good luck with your project. Next item is item number 20. Mr. Butler.
This is case C 7388, a preliminary plat of Riverbend located south of West Wilshire Boulevard and east of the John Kilpatrick Turnpike.
Good afternoon, Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road. On behalf of the applicant, what you have before you is a preliminary plat at the southeast corner of Kilpatrick and Wilshire. It's in conformance with the recently approved PUD. We've reviewed the TEs and agreed to all of them. We would ask for your approval.
Okay, thank you very much. This is in Commissioner Clare's ward. In his absence, I will note for the record that we're told by staff the design of this preliminary plat conforms with subdivision regulations as they relate to access requirements for subdivisions with over 200 lots. We're also told by staff that the design is in conformance with the requirements of the recently approved or recommended therefore PUD 1899. I don't have anything else. You're in agreement with all the TEs, is that correct? Yes?
Yes.
I thought you said that. Is there anybody who wants to be heard on C-7388?
I do have one clarification.
All right.
The PUD.
This is why we need to sell ads, you know?
Well, this just came back before you with a new PUD. I'm just making sure that number is correct.
No, I just wish we could sell ad time, make some money, you know what I mean? Like sales tax, if you take a break, we could put an ad out.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. Money maker. Go ahead. It's my last meeting, I don't care. Go ahead.
I'm doing it just to put you in pain.
Fine.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify that TE2, that PUD 1899, or the recently approved PUD. I did not check that. So
Do we know what PUD number that is?
that's what I was
Oh,
asking.
you were asking? Okay. You stood up.
We believe it's PUD 1899. It was just recommended for approval at your last meeting.
Okay, that's what I thought. It was on its way. That's why I said or recommended
Everybody's
therefore.
on the same
I
page.
thought I covered you.
Okay.
All right. Anybody want to be heard on C-7388? If there's no comments or questions from my fellow commissioners on it, I just need a motion in Commissioner Clare's absence.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve C-7388.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat for C-7388, subject to the technical evaluation. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And that item is approved. Good luck with your project. Next item is item 21.
This is CPA 2022, number 2, consideration of a proposed map amendment to the comprehensive plan. This would remove the urban future LUDA layer from urban low intensity. And the location is northwest 122nd and east of North Morgan Road.
Lobaneri Mujica-Ortiz for the Planning Department. It's a request to remove the urban future layer from the urban low intensity base designation. The associated zoning application is PC 10813. Here is the site. The existing conditions, the LUDA is an urban future, is surrounded to the east by urban low, to the west by urban future. The existing condition, the land use, is basically undeveloped land with some rural residentials. The zoning actually right now is agricultural. The water, the subject site is served by city water. Wastewater, the applicant is proposing to bring sanitary sewer. And fire, the northern part of the parcel is in the rural response time, with the southern part located within the urban response time set by Plan OKC. The considerations to request to leave the urban future LUDA layer from the underlying urban low-intensity based LUDA designation. One goal of the land use plan is to direct urban development into areas that are most efficient for the city to serve. The comprehensive plan states that in order to be designated as urban low, development should be served by water, sewer, and emergency services. This development would be fully served by water and sewer and is within urban and rural response time for emergency services. The findings, the applicant proposes to extend sewer services to the subject site. The northern part of the parcel is within rural response time, with the southern part located within the urban response time for emergency services set by Plan OKC. Extension of sewer infrastructure will allow and require subsequent development in the area to connect to the city sewer system. Based on the findings above, staff recommends approval of the request to lift the urban feature LUDA layer from the underlying urban low-intensity base LUDA designations. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll find out. Commissioners, this is Commissioner Claire's ward, but do you all have any questions for staff on this? No? Okay. I do have somebody who wanted to be heard on the comp plan amendment specifically, so I will ask them to come forward at this time. Mr. Johnson, are you here? Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Start out by giving us your name and address, sir.
Harry Johnson, 13001 North Morgan Road. I can appreciate that they would like to develop this and make a little more money. I can have a great appreciation for that. I've been there since 1980, and having been shot down a few times myself in front of this planning commission, not this particular one, I can appreciate it. But there's no overriding reason, really, to take this out of the urban layer that it's in. This thing has got a high line across it. It's got waterways. It's got a long border with a noisy Kilpatrick Turnpike, which I appreciate also. And there's just no overriding reason to do this. The infrastructure's not there. We've lived out there happily with our neighbors. Even a couple of them have had what amounts to feedlots because they got too many cows on their 5 acres. We haven't protested. This is something that won't fit in. You won't be able to get in and out of the addition. Right now, when school's in, you can't drive down Memorial Road past county line because it's backed up waiting for people to pick up their kids. The people that want to exit this development on Morgan Road will not be able to do anything except turn north because there'll be a steady stream of traffic in the morning taking kids to school. It's just not suitable. They don't have the water there. The pressure's already dropping. And the infrastructure is not there. If they want to build this up before they put all these houses there, that's another matter. But right now, it's a pretty dim prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate that. Does the applicant want to comment on the comp plan amendment?
Yes. Sir, is this your pen? One, we're in a unique position to be in agreement with staff's analysis. It is worth noting that Morgan Road has recently been resurfaced. It's not even a negative because they recommend approval. When you look at the fire response time, the only reason that the northern piece is rural and not urban is because there's no street network to get there. Once a street network is in place, the entirety of the site will meet the urban response time. So we've checked every box as it relates to what we want to see when we have a request to go from urban reserve to urban low. It's fully served adjacent to a turnpike. So I'd struggle to think what else might be appropriate here. So we would ask for your approval.
Thank you very much. I mean, I understand Mr. Johnson's comments, and I know that this process, as it relates to folks from the public, seems maybe a little bit confusing. That we hear these comp plan amendments first, which are just about the city's comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2015, and whether or not this application merits the removal or the change of the LUDA. It's sort of a precursor to the zoning. It doesn't necessarily determine the zoning. We're going to hear that too, and we're going to talk about that. What we're told in this report, though, from staff, the 3 major concerns are water, sewer, and emergency services. And if those items aren't being served or can't be served, then we talk with applicants about what they're doing in lieu of that. Sometimes sites can be suitable for aerobic septic systems, and so that's what they're proposing, and so we have that discussion. But here, we're told that it meets that 3 criteria. There's a lot of housing developed along the section and portion of the Kilpatrick Turnpike that abuts it immediately. It's littered with housing along the west side of this turnpike as you drive toward Yukon. So from a comp plan perspective, never mind the zoning, which we'll talk about next, I can't see any reason why I wouldn't support a recommendation, or I'm sorry, an approval here. Does any of my fellow commissioners feel differently about that? Okay. Commissioner Claire is not here, or I'd ask him, but would somebody care to make a motion on the comp plan? Oh, 1 second. Yes, sir, would you like to be heard? Okay. Please come up. Go ahead and come up. Go ahead and come up if you would, since you started speaking. Now I gotta have your name and address for the record in case we need to hunt you down, ask you questions later, interrogate you, things of that nature.
Seems like it's sort of, I was supposed to give this to somebody, I don't know. They said that in lieu of an easel or something. I thought there was an easel, I'm not sure.
Ma'am, could you give us your name and address, please?
Yes. Judy Gordon, I'm at 12901 North Morgan Road.
And let me answer your question real quick.
Okay.
So, and that's what I was trying to articulate. I may have done a bad job, so that's my apologies there. The zoning is what we're going to talk about next. The conversation we were having was just about the comp plan amendment as it relates to the comprehensive plan. So the Planning Commission makes the final decision on the comp plan amendment, but the zoning is something that we're going to hear separately, and that's where we'll talk about compatibility and what's around it and all that. So I don't want to deprive you if you have comments about the comp plan, but at this point, because that's the agenda item before us, I just want to limit any comments you have to that. And then the next item is the rezoning application.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that if this permits more intensive use, if this item permits more intensive use out there, that we're definitely opposed to it. After waiting a year to get rezoned to move out there for low intensity, then definitely I just want to express my disapproval for changing a comp plan for this area for sure.
Yeah, this is urban low intensity, and just for the benefit of those here, I'll read this for you. Urban low intensity applies to the least intensively developed areas of the city that still receive urban water, sewer, police, park, and fire services. Development in this area should provide horizontal integration of land uses, connectivity within and between individual developments, and design that facilitates pedestrian and bicycle transportation. So that's the definition of what we're considering today.
Okay. I just want to say too, I just spent $10,000 to get water because I have a well that was contaminated. So, you know, we don't have city water, we don't have sewer, we don't have drainage, proper drainage on our road, all of those kind of things. We just don't have. Even with the new road, it's not built properly, and there's a lot of drainage right now. We have a lot of pictures of it that is coming off of the particular land right there, going over the road, and it's going to wash the whole thing out. But we don't have the same kind of roads that other places have to facilitate this kind of thing. So I just wanted to bring that up. We don't have water, we don't have sewer, and we have to pay intensely to get it, as we just did.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, I'm so sorry, sir. You're going to have to come back up. And then at this point, any other comments that deal with the zoning, I'm just going to hold them off. So this is going to be our last comment about anything zoning related.
Just a clarification.
Okay.
Did he say this addition will have septic tanks?
No, he did not. They are planning to serve this entire development with sewer.
Okay, so I have a question.
Okay.
A couple of decades ago, Cobblestone failed, went into bankruptcy, and when people tried to buy it, the city said, you'll have to build a lift station. To my certain knowledge, there's not been a lift station built yet, and there's been, what, 4,000 or 5,000 houses built? So how are they going to do this?
Well, Cobblestone has been developed as a neighborhood for a long, long time. As you know, there's lots of houses there. They must have solved that problem, but if there's somebody here from city staff that can...
Yeah, that's my question. How did they solve it? Since it was a critical problem at one time.
Not aware. I'm not aware. Does anybody from city staff have any knowledge about that? You knew you were going to get summoned, didn't you?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was.
Dustin Seagraves, Utilities Department. I have, where's Cobblestone at?
Cobblestone is just west of Council Road on Memorial to the south, and it runs all the way to 122nd.
Yeah, there is not a lift station out in that area. There is, when I looked at this and I reviewed this application for the zoning, there is sanitary sewer available out there that could be extended at the developer's cost.
That would work. Gravity sewer?
Gravity sewer, yes. It will work out there. That they will develop that themselves. I did see that there is a water line nearby that they will have to extend to be able to get water into the development at their cost as well.
Okay, and pull into. But the water service is there, and the sewer service for gravity-fed sewer is there.
That is correct.
Mr. Johnson, we're being told by city staff that gravity sewer is there.
Doesn't answer the question of why it was needed 20 years ago is not needed now, but could be who owned Cobblestone.
Could be. Is this a comp plan issue? Okay.
Chris Tucker,
Chris Tucker, 13013 North Morgan Road, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099. I've got my question is, what is the benefit to the residents in this area, the current residents in this area, to remove the LUDA from the zoning map?
That's a great question. Do you mind if I answer it just personally? So when we look at areas that are ripe for development and we see that they're served by water and sewer primarily, and also that they're at least mostly served by emergency service, those maps, if you've ever looked at one, just because you don't have anything better to do, which I highly doubt, but if you've ever looked at one, they're kind of strange in the way that they sort of clover out and make these little clouds that don't always overlap where fire service is available. Okay. So I look at that a little less weighty as I do water and service based on the density that the applicant is proposing to provide. Because of the density that's being provided here, and we have the ability to review that, of course, because the zoning item is what's next, and then we also have the plat today as well, we got a chance to see the full scope of the application. So without water and sewer, I would not be in favor, obviously, of supporting an application like this. But when I look at it, what I look at, the benefit being for the residents there is, I tell people all the time, the frustrating part sometimes about zoning is that it has to maybe get worse before it gets better. So the more rooftops there are, the more priority those areas become for things like widened roads, better sewer service, changes in on-ramps and off-ramps, because at various times, whether that's through general obligation bond issues or surprise funding that the city finds that wasn't previously allocated to streets and roads, the council people then allocate those dollars and those planned projects based on priority. When we remove these LUDA layers, what we're telling them, what we're trying to tell them, is more development is coming. As you saw on the previous map, there's a lot of area to the west of this that's already designated as urban future, which means, hey, services are here, and if an application comes up, it probably can be served. This is an area where housing makes sense. That's generally what it's trying to tell us, okay? Not always, but generally. And so when I look at it, I think, how can I best draw attention to not a resurfacing, but a widening of Morgan Road, particularly because Morgan Road serves a connection at Northwest Expressway and Hefner off the Turnpike, and that's really the only connection that's going to serve this. If I want to drive attention to it, I have to do it with rooftops. And so for me, that's what I look at, is how can I encourage development to occur and become more of a priority when I know housing is coming no matter what we do. This area, even to the west, Mr. Tucker, and to the north and to the east, we've seen a lot of housing developments come through here in the past, just call it 2 or 3 years. And there are areas that are already zoned that will continue to be developed. And that's something that comes into my thought process too when I look at these items on the comp plan perspective. Does
That answers my question.
help you? Thank you very much for coming down. Okay, so I had a motion, I believe, to approve the comp plan amendment. I'll take the second if someone would like to make that on PrimeGov. And again, I just want to reiterate for the folks that are here, this is say nothing of the zoning item, okay? So we're going to talk about that separately. So it's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes on the comp plan amendment when available. All votes should be cast, and that amendment, CPA 2022-00002, is approved. Next item on the agenda is item 22, which is the companion zoning item. Mr. Butler?
Yes, this is case PC 10813, application to rezone 12300 North Morgan Road from AA to R1.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, on behalf of the applicant. This is the zoning piece. There were many discussions that have taken place from when this was filed. This was continued from the May docket. Mr. Zitzow and Mr. Johnson, as well as the proposed developer, have spent many hours meeting with the neighbors. Some concessions were reached. Those have been relayed to the neighbors. They will show up as a plat note or in some form of a CC&R. Just some of the concessions that were made. 27 lots were removed on the west side. The drive on Morgan has been shifted in a manner to make someone to the west happy.
You said the drive on Morgan?
The drive on Morgan has been shifted slightly south. That was a request by one of the neighbors in one of the meetings. You'll see it on the plat.
Okay.
There was a note on the plat that adds that fencing shall be capped cedar fence with masonry columns and shall be maintained by the HOA. And there was a concern allegedly about sexual predators existing within this neighborhood. and the request was made to put pocket parks throughout the neighborhood via common areas, which my client agreed to do, even though we believe that fear to be completely unfounded.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the term pocket park. Can somebody from staff explain that to me? Somebody, anybody?
Just a small park, and it depends on who you ask how big it is, but our Parks and Rec department doesn't typically do those because they're small, and we would have thousands of them around the city and difficult to maintain. So typically they're just small parks that are, I don't know, 5 acres or less, 1 to 5 acres, something like that, that HOAs maintain.
So these will be smaller than that. These are going to be small common areas that are being designated on the plat as a park. They will obviously be common area, therefore owned and maintained by the HOA, not the city. It was the desire of the neighbors that, based upon state law, they thought that that would keep their fear safe.
Okay, but when we talk about parks, a lot of times we talk about what portion of the common area space or the open space is designated to amenities.
Yeah, so that'll be separate. I mean, we do not, in the next item, which is the plat, you'll see.
I understand, but just as it relates to, I want to make sure I understand that we're not altering anything in the zoning that would prevent you from providing.
No, sir.
Standard residential amenities and things like that.
Correct. And you'll see on the plat, we don't seek any variances as it relates to open space or common areas, so we will meet all the amenity requirements that exist under the subregs in the zoning ordinance. We are simply adding these, quote, pocket parks, end quote, to ease the concerns raised by neighbors.
Okay, understood. Commissioner Clare is not here. Do any commissioners have questions for the applicant on this? No? Okay, so I know we've got a number of people signed up to speak on the zoning item. I will say, obviously, we sort of heard a little bit already about traffic and roads, so I think we understand that as a concern, so please, we can skip that. I'll just start going through Judy Gordon. You want to come back up? I felt like I had to call on you first. You got the board and the whole thing, and I had to cut you off, and I felt bad, so I put your sheet to the top.
Okay, just because I didn't think a piece of paper might do this justice, my name's Judy Gordon, live at 12901 North Morgan.
Thank you, Ms.
I live
Gordon.
right here. When we first looked at this land, it was not rezoned. It took about a year to go through zoning and do 15 5-acre rural tracts out here. We built our home in 2005 after that was approved. I think it was PC 9865. And then about a mile of this whole area that surrounds this whole thing, and these are names of people who've written letters. It surrounds this property. And anyway, we just don't think that it's compatible with the farms and the rural that was done by the city. It was a PUD, and a lot of this was done by the city. After we've got our homes built and everything else, now we're going to get really intense. So all I wanted to point out was, in the zoning, it says that AA creates and preserves areas intended primarily for agricultural purposes. It permits low density and residential development. It's not intended for a lower standard. And the types of uses and the intensity of use are designed to encourage and protect the agricultural uses on a permanent basis. I just wanted to talk about that and the light and the open space. And 300 homes going in and out here with construction. We don't know for sure that they wouldn't use our Morgan Road there for construction, but the roads out there just don't hold this, even if they're redoing them. And so we'd like to have no entrance there whatsoever in addition to the zoning, but I'll talk about that on the plat. The area is established and it's developed prior to this, asking to come in. It would not protect our area from the intensified zoning. And the 300 homes to us is not compatible with the surrounding area. And it wouldn't be a complementary addition to the overall smooth transition from one established zoning area to the other. On 122nd, you can see all of those homes that were just put in. There's 3 additions there. They do not have acreage homes in between and, all around this particular type of development like we do. So I just would ask that you consider to deny the request, and because of the reasons that I've stated here.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon, very much. I appreciate that. So I just wrote down, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to summarize to make sure I know.
Okay.
We talked about roads, and then you've expressed concerns over density and the agricultural zoning protections.
Yes, because we're already established, and there's been 20 homes built since the 15 were approved by the city after we waited an entire year to go through all the zoning processes just to get it back to the AA. And then now it seems like everything's just turning around. There are a lot of good uses for this land that's being proposed, but it needs to be a more user-friendly transition to our area. I was Economic Development and Community Services Director for 10 years for a city. I love economic development, but I like to find things that are compatible with what you already have. And if it was a small town like I worked in, you would have so many people upset by just putting something like this in there to where an area that we thought was going to be more, as you go out now, there's a lot of nice additions that have come in that have been great. They've been very compatible. There's one on 122nd. There's not 122nd, I'm sorry, Memorial that bounds up there. There's Stone Ridge. There's a lot of things that are pretty compatible. They're not as high density, and they've been away from the road and don't really interfere with the farms and the acreages that are already existing. This is over 100 acres. It's a farm. This is a horse and farm over here, and we feel like we all fit in fine around all the edges of all of these things, and that a more lesser dense type development should be thought about for this, or parceled out into several different types of things. Maybe housing would even work well in part of it, but maybe around the edges it could be light commercial or some different things like that, because it is a very challenging property when you get on it with all of the negatives that exist on it right now.
Got it. Thank you, Ms. Gordon. We appreciate it very much. Thanks for coming down today. Next person I've signed up to speak is J.C. Barr.
No, I don't need that. My name is J.C. Barr. I live at 12801 North Morgan Road. I'm in opposition to this plan. I'd like to mention that the schools in Piedmont are already at capacity. The high school's at 105%. Also, Habitat for Humanity has been planning 450 homes just on the other side of the Stone Ridge development there at Morgan and 150th. So there are going to be some lesser square footage, lower income homes in the area. I think that's going to detract from the values of our property, and I'd like to once again say that I am opposed to this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. We appreciate you coming down and sharing concerns with us. I've added schools and property values to the list of density and compatibility issues, protecting the agricultural zoning, and roads and traffic. So, next person I've signed up to speak is Tony Heim, and forgive me if I mispronounce your last name. Oh, Tommy, sorry.
Hi, I'm Tommy Heim. Excuse me, I live at 12525 North Morgan Road. And I guess I'm the guy that you're trying to, what'd you say, make happy by moving the driveway south off of Morgan Road? So, yeah, they're proposing an entrance directly across the street from our house. I have basically 3 questions. One is, how do I get a copy of what they're proposing to build? Because I don't have anything. He said you guys have met hours and hours. Well, I know of one 45-minute meeting that happened at a church.
So all of the items that are presented or were included in our packets are available online.
Okay, this is all I have, so I need to know where to find all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So on the back of that is the plat.
Okay, so how big are the houses going to be?
Just a moment, and I'll look at the plat to see what I'm told. Hang on a second. I don't remember offhand. So I can tell you this while I'm looking. The proposed zoning is R1, and it's not seeking to be modified, so that would be a 6,000 square foot lot, which is standard under the code. So 6,000 square foot lot.
6,000 square foot houses or lots?
Lot.
And so what's that, 1,500, 12, 15?
Well, it actually depends a little bit. In this case, let me see if I'm told.
$160, $180?
Let's see if we're told. I recall that we are.
We agreed to a minimum square footage of the homes of 1,300 square feet.
Oh, and that was by agreement with the neighbors, right?
Yes.
I thought that there had been something there, or that was mentioned, or it was in our staff report or something. But so lots in this plat. I'm reading from the next item just to clarify your question. Okay, lots in this plat range in size approximately 6,000 to 13,000 square feet, and the applicant is telling us that there's 297 single-family lots on 5 common areas on 99.165 acres, so yielding a gross density of 3 dwelling units per acre and apparently a minimum build size of 1,300 square feet.
Okay. There's going to be a PUD drawn on this, correct?
No. So this item is it's a base rezoning request from AA to R1, so it would just develop in line with the code. For R1 zoning, and then there is a plat.
R1 coding, I'm
single
sorry,
family.
Is it not subject to the beautification corridor zoning requirements?
It's required. It's basically what's required of it is what's outlined in the code. So there are certainly landscaping requirements. There are open space requirements. There are residential amenity requirements that are a part of our subdivision.
I
regulations.
also have PUD 1522 on the east side of the turnpike. And I was sucked into the beautification corridor zoning requirements.
I would have been here for 15, I think, but I don't remember it, so I can't comment on it.
Well, I know, but it added about $750,000 to my project just so I could brick and put in curb streets.
Sure.
Morgan Road.
That's one of the things about a PUD is that becomes a specifically negotiated document. And so sometimes those things do vary, the underlying code of the base zoning.
Well, I understand progress and I understand things are coming. I don't think the sizes of the houses flow with what's already out there. I mean, I'm a 6,000 square foot home with a 6,000 square foot building, and I'll be directly across the street from it. And I chose that out there because the zoning the zoning that was out there and the like mind of the residents and what have you. And now directly across the street, you're going to cram 300, 1,500 square foot homes in that are probably going to be siding rather than brick.
That would be an approved exterior building element under the code.
Okay, I don't really have any questions. I do stand in opposition to it. I appreciate it if they'd move the driveway so it doesn't match right up with mine if it goes forward. But yeah, I'm not in favor of this. This isn't the right use. Put in some baseball fields. Housing market's going to crap anyway, so.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. We appreciate you coming down today. Next person I have signed up to speak is Garrett Duty. And Mr. Duty, just for your benefit, we've heard about schools and property value concerns. Mr. Heim added housing sizes, home sizes to ours as well, and then roads, traffic density, the agricultural zoning, and compatibility concerns.
Yeah, I'm going to cover something that I think Judy missed in her synopsis of the current AA zoning. So, not to be trite, I'm just going to read the last sentence real quick. The types of uses, area, intensity of use regulations are designed to encourage and protect agricultural uses on a permanent basis, or until such time as urbanization takes place and an appropriate change in district classification is made. Okay, so. There's no urbanization. We have no parks. We have no public transit. It's all 2-lane roads, which, again, this is all things we've talked about. But the way I read this, something needs to happen to prompt this rezoning to R1 single-family residential. As they all said, if it were less dense, if it were additional 5-acre tracts, fine. I'm not going to argue against it. It matches what's out there. What we currently have here, though, is an out-of-state owner, Camino Resources in Denver, trying to sell this contingent on this zoning change to another out-of-state builder. It benefits no one in our community. I have a 2.5-year-old and I have a 7-month-old. They're going to go to the school down the street. This is going to impact my kids. It's not going to impact them. It's not going to impact Camino or Leonard. It's going to impact us. We've built our forever homes out here conforming to the existing zoning. We have planned our lives around this. And this change, as they've all said, it makes no sense. It doesn't fit with our community. It is not wanted in our community. And just to further the school point, Piedmont Schools currently possesses no land to expand onto, and they currently have no plans to expand. So just from an infrastructure, from a school, from a community standpoint, this doesn't make sense. I know we've all written letters. I know you guys have hopefully read them.
I read every letter that was included in the packet.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that per the Oklahoma City Municipal Code, urbanization needs to happen here in order to allow this to change from AA. Now, you can define urbanization however you want, but this is by definition, Piedmont is a suburban rural bedroom community. We don't have core employers. We don't have Tinker Air Force Base. We don't have hospitals. People live in Piedmont to be away from urbanization. They then drive in on the highways to their work. Everyone that lives in Piedmont has a commute to work. This is not an urbanized area. This will never be an urbanized area. And this just really doesn't make sense with what the zoning says as far as what's possible. And again, just to reiterate that last sentence in the AA zoning, I don't feel like makes sense with what we're trying to do here. It doesn't permanently protect our agricultural way of life. And that is what we have established here. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Duty. We appreciate you coming down very much. We really do. Thank you. Next up is
I don't think we got Mr. Duty's name and address for the record.
Yeah, he gave it. Garrett Duty. You want to give your address one more time just in case I'm wrong and she's right?
Yeah, no problem. Garrett Duty, 12900 North Morgan Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Tucker. Got it. Mr. Tucker has noted, I'll just say so the microphone can hear, Mr. Tucker, who previously spoke, has noted he echoes the concerns that have been shared.
I was told that there was something. So, yes, do you need me to restate my address and everything again?
That would be great. Sorry.
Okay, Chris Tucker, 13013 North Morgan Road, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099. So I want to thank Johnson and Associates. They've been actually very pleasant to work with, and we met with Lennar, the developer that's trying to develop the area. They have made some concessions for us, but I did want to point out, and then everybody in the group here agreed that the 1,300 was nothing that we agreed upon. It was basically what Lennar said that was their minimum that they would require for the square footage. So
got it. I appreciate that clarification for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And then, Mr. Johnson, you have some additional comments you want to share with us? Well, you know what we've heard about. Let us know what we haven't, sir.
Say again?
I said, you know what we've heard about, so please let us know what we haven't.
I know. You haven't heard about this. Harry Johnson, 13001 North Morgan Road. Yeah, now we get to the sticky wicket. According to the National Wetlands Inventory, part of this is wetlands, which requires a jurisdictional determination. And if the Corps of Engineers determines that it is wetlands, then they have to approve of everything. So we're back at square one. I've had a little experience with wetlands. Wasn't good. It's not a happy thing. I didn't create the Clean Water Act of 404.
Neither did we.
So, but we got to live with it.
Yeah, but we don't have any jurisdiction over it. So our
Well, wait just a minute.
yeah.
You can't proceed unless you follow federal law, I don't think.
Yeah. We're making a recommendation today, one way or the other, a recommendation to deny or a recommendation to approve on a zoning application. Whether the Clean Water Act or some federal agency or the Army Corps may have issues with them building on this site is not for us to decide today, and it's not
Okay.
within our purview of consideration.
Well, just for the record, if you go ahead with it, I will take personal responsibility to see that the government looks at this and see if it complies with 404.
Understood. Thank you very much. Okay, that is the last person I have signed up to speak. I'll ask, just out of an abundance of caution, if there's anybody else who wants to be heard on this item today. Okay, Mr. Box, do you want to respond to any of that for the benefit of the commissioners before we turn this discussion inwardly?
Yeah, just briefly. I'd note the minimum square footage was offered as some assurances as to what would be built. As this commission is aware, this is not something that is typically discussed in a zoning application. You know, the zoning has minimum lot size, it has setbacks, it has height requirements. When you get into size of homes, it gets into kind of a bit of a gray area for cities to start enforcing. So we have done that through CC&Rs. We have sent the draft of the CC&Rs to the neighbors. They received those this morning. I would note the question of this doesn't serve anyone, this provides no benefit to anyone. I don't know the stat, Mr. Chair, you've said it many a times, of the number of people that have moved into the market and the number of building permits. This commission's aware, the city council's aware, we have a significant shortage in homes available for people. We have seen a massive influx of people moving to this market, and the number of people moving here, this has significantly outpaced the number of new builds that we have. So I would argue that it provides a significant benefit in that it provides another option for housing within this area of the city, which is a very an emerging market in the city, in large part because of the turnpike and other things that have happened over here. So with that, it's an application that's consistent with the comp plan. We think it's consistent with the long-range plan for the city. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So in Commissioner Clare's absence here, I mean, I'll just make a few comments relating to some of the concerns that were shared, and then we'll see if other commissioners have feedback or thoughts that vary from my own or where I am. Our role in rezoning items is to look at the zoning, the code, compatibility, the area, the comp plan, the surrounding development, cases that have come through both previous to this and then the one before us to determine, you know, what is an appropriate level of density based on what's going on. I think the best argument against this case, this is my opinion, is the roads. I think that's the best argument against it. If you took that out of the equation, this is incredibly straightforward to me. And again, remember that we're a recommending body. Our role is to make a recommendation to City Council based on all of that, and then City Council takes into account other factors for their consideration, along with our recommendation, and makes the ultimate decision on the zoning. So our role here is to try to objectively view everything and send a message. So here's what we know. What we know is that the property will be served by water and sewer. What we know is that there is a housing development to the northeast of this and to the northwest of this that is basically built on a similar lot size. We know there are other developments in the area that have been approved or are in some portion of progress toward being approved. So they've either been platted, or they've been zoned but not platted, or preliminary platted but not final plat. Some of them have been final platted, as I recall. They just haven't started pulling permits out here. But this area is urbanizing. I would say I've been the Ward 8 representative, and this was in my ward up until recently, that we see, a case out here probably every second or third meeting in some form. There have been instances where we have recommended denial to City Council on certain density elements, and City Council has ultimately approved those. One of those occurred, Mr. Hull, for your benefit, out across the street from Piedmont. My memory is that that's 206 or 220. I don't remember exactly what that is, but right across the street from the heart of Piedmont, we recommended denial unanimously. It was approved at City Council. There was a case, an apartment complex a mile to the east of this that was heavily negotiated. We ultimately recommended approval. My memory of that was City Council didn't approve it. So there's been some things out here that have created a kind of a disparate result, and a lot of that I think has come down to infrastructure. So I think that's the strongest argument. The density, the protection of AA zoning, what tips off a conversation about appropriateness for zoning is an applicant bringing forward a rezoning application. That's what does it. It isn't something that the city does. It isn't something that we do as planning commissioners. It's an applicant saying, I want to build this project here. It's compatible, and here's why. And then we have to make that determination independently of staff based on their recommendation. We have a recommendation in our staff report today that is for approval, and it is an approval without any changes. So our staff report tells us, makes comments about things like water and sewer, things like traffic, things like compatibility, and ultimately the staff recommends that we approve this item. And I think generally, as I said, it is a fairly straightforward item. The school complaint is something that we hear a lot. Not just from Piedmont, but from Deer Creek, from Moore, from Yukon, from Mustang, because these areas that surround the inner circle of the city, and by inner circle, I mean Turnpike on the west, I-35 on the east, call it, 100 and what, Matt, 19th on the south. I mean, so we hear from these districts about the stress they're in, and that's because, as Mr. Box alluded to, one of the stats that always catches me off guard is in 2020, which is the last year I think we have data for, if I'm not mistaken, 6,838 building permits were issued. I actually think that was last year. In 2020, which is the last year of the census data, we had over 10,000 net new residents in Oklahoma City alone. So it's not hard to see that we have a tremendous housing deficiency, which is creating kind of a more rapid urbanization. So our commission is challenged in a very difficult way to balance that growth, the need for housing, with the fact that infrastructure invariably trails the development. And as I said during the comp plan discussion, one of the things that I've sort of come to understand is that the best thing I can do, I live at Council and Memorial for the record, and the best thing that I can do to bring attention to the area, which Council, for example, needs an interchange desperately, is to keep adding rooftops. By doing that, I get it prioritized. And I've learned that being here for 5 years, and I feel that way about Morgan Road too, in terms of wanting it to be 4-lane. This whole area needs new streets, it just does. But we're behind the curve there. So, I'm curious what other commissioners have to say as it relates to the access to the Kilpatrick Turnpike from this, which basically you got to drive straight down Morgan Road to get there. It's, I don't want to misquote it, but not quite a mile. Mr. Box, do you know? A mile? A little over a mile? Would you say less than a mile and a half? Okay, so less than a mile and a half away from a turnpike interchange. The people in Mustang, who we see cases more frequently for Mustang than we do this part of the city, and they have the same frustration because when that turnpike came through, the number of housing applications that came through just exploded. This turnpike is the reason that it's urbanizing. Water and sewer is the reason that it's urbanizing, because Mr. Box and his applicant figure out that they can bring water and sewer and serve the area, and they want housing there. And it makes sense, at least from my seat, objectively as a planning commissioner, it makes sense why we would do that here. Now, I've tried to address some of the concerns. I've talked a lot, so I want to make sure we get comments from other commissioners. Anybody have thoughts or feelings on this that are different, things I didn't say that you'd like to add?
And a 300-house neighborhood doesn't appear tomorrow morning. That's a 7-8 year project.
That's a fair point. So a common misconception is that there's 300 houses, so next year there'll be 300 homes there. So they go through the platting phase. They'll have to come back for a final plat. Everyone who received notice on this item, I believe, receives notice on the final plat as well. If you actually got something in the mail, Mr. Heim, you'd get another notice for that. But it comes back, and at that point, they can start pulling building permits. Well, they're not going to pull 297 building permits. So that's a very good point, Mr. Hinkle. It'll build out in phases over time. And I'm with you. Honestly, 300 houses, I mean, we see applications for, 1,100 houses. So it's not, doesn't strike me as being just an overwhelming number of homes in a development of this size. So, and it meets the minimum lot size. Would you have anything you wanted to add, Commissioner Penton?
I deeply empathize with the school capacity issue.
Yes, I do too.
And I've said it every single time this issue's come up, and I'm going to say it again. The state legislature needs to change the law to make it easier for you to scale up in the places where there's more demand for the school system. We need to change the state law. We need to advocate together that the legislature make it easier for us to make it easier to build more schools when we need them. And so I will be the first person to join you whenever we make that effort to meet with the legislature. And I know this commission's done a lot to try to at least convene the superintendents from all of these areas, including Piedmont.
Piedmont did participate in the planning meeting that was held June the 6th, as I recall. Yes, June the 6th. We had a meeting. We invited all superintendents to attend. Of the 20-plus superintendents that were invited, there were 4. One of those was from Piedmont. So your district had a representative there and represented you well in that discussion.
And I just want to bring back to the chairman's point about the fact that we are a recommending body. At the end of the day, your elected officials will make the final decision, and I would encourage you to make sure that your voice has been heard with our Ward 1 City Council person.
Which is Councilman Bradley Carter. And you can contact him at ward1@okc.gov. And regardless of the outcome, you can email him any concerns that you have. You can, but you'll have to come up here because there's like 4 people that are watching from home and they really want to hear. They're on the edge of their seat with anticipation.
Very knowledgeable about the school districting. How is that determined? I searched all over the place and I couldn't find how they determine what sections of the cities go to what school districts.
That I cannot answer, but I'd love to find that out too. So maybe we need to work together and find out.
Well, it's a mystery. There's nothing out there anywhere, so. All right, thanks.
I do know, Mr. Tucker, for whatever it's worth, and I really don't want to put words in Mr. Perez's mouth, but we had the Deer Creek superintendent here at the last meeting kind of sharing the same thing. Deer Creek was also a participant in our schools discussion, and he shared that their frustration is they don't have a lot of commercial development. And so what happens is the commercial development drives more ad valorem tax dollars to the schools, which increases their bonding capacity and allows them to pull more money out in bonds to facilitate growth. And that one of their frustrations, which I'm sure is a similar concern of Piedmont's, is that a lot of that growth comes from housing, which doesn't provide as many ad valorem dollars.
Gotcha. All right, thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
At the risk of trying people's patience, and despite the loss of some of our protestants already who left us, I want to say, this is an issue about which I have a great deal of sympathy. My family owns property out at Surrey Hills. Drive up and down Northwest Expressway. We've owned it since the 80s. And so, you drive up and down Northwest Expressway, and it seems like there's a very slow creep of development occurring. And, for years and years and years, it just seemed like there was just nothing out there, Except at night when you see the lights and then you can actually see there's actually a lot out there. But, people move to these edges of the city of Oklahoma City. They think they're moving to the country. It stays that way for what seems like forever. They start to think it's always going to be that way. And then all of a sudden, and of course it's not true, it's not all of a sudden, it took forever to get the turnpike approved and constructed and all of that. But in people years, it seems like all of a sudden, everything's booming. Stuff's getting built. People are moving out there. And, between Ward 1 and Ward 8, and even Ward 3, the number of cases that we see for new home development out on the western edge and northwestern edge, southwestern edge of Oklahoma City is mind-boggling at times. And when I drive out there still, I look and I think, this piece of property that's been empty forever it's going to be a development in the next couple of years. This one, this one, this one, this one. And it's happening all around. And I know it does feel to people like they're being squeezed. They've built their forever homes. They've moved out to where a rural area because that's where they want to live. But that turnpike, there's just no denying it. It has changed everything. It will change everything. And it's, you know, there's no going back. This kind of development, residential development, as things go, is much lower density, intensity, and impact than a lot of other things that could be being built out there. So, you know, I have a great deal of sympathy, but in terms of our decision making, this is the reality we're dealing with.
I agree 100%, and it's not evident from looking at the map that's on the screen right now, but that housing that you see southeast of 122nd and the Turnpike does not yet exist, at least the way that we've approved it. We've approved housing that extends all the way down to Hefner. That mile is all residential, that because of the Turnpike and the pressure and the need for housing. And like my tilt on balance between issues like trailing infrastructure or allowing housing is that what I don't want to happen in Oklahoma City is that we allow ourselves to get so far behind in housing stock based on the growth that we have a real problem, more than we already have, with varying levels of affordable housing types. That means something different for everybody, but we just have a shortage of housing generally. I'm frankly thrilled that it's not an apartment complex or something that would be easier not to support because of the infrastructure. The single family housing aspect of this, I think, really helps me feel better about what it is, how much density and increase it's going to add, and it's just the lesser of the evils between a two-lane road and a need for housing, in my view. When I balance that out, that's where I land. So any other thoughts people have or different opinions they share? Okay. Well, if there's...
Well, I was just going to say, I think there's quite a significant green buffer that's been incorporated in here. Certainly it's been discussed quite a bit, which is a good thing. So I would also look on the bright side with regard to that, because that's now preserved in the plat, so that you can depend that will remain, as well as the core 404 permit. I strongly encourage that should be looked into, and I'm sure the developer is aware of the potential for wetlands.
Thank you, Commissioner Govine. Commissioner Clare's not here. I need somebody to make a motion on this if somebody feels comfortable making one. This is a straight zoning application, so there are no TEs. It's just a recommendation on the item.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of PC 10813.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10813. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. Who are we missing? Oh. Now we should. And that item is recommended for approval. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the companion plat item, I believe, item 23.
Yes, this is plat, case number C7450, preliminary plat of Huntington Ridge, and it's located north of Northwest 122nd Street and east of North Morgan Road.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is the companion plat application. As Commissioner Govine stated, there is a significant west side that is going to operate as a green belt. We also removed 27 lots on that west side. So we are aware that there's a blue line, as evidenced by the image before you, and whatever state or federal requirements exist, Johnson & Associates will be dealing with that.
Are the 27 lots that were removed, are they still reflected on this?
No.
No, they've been removed.
So there are 5 TEs, all of which we agree to, and then we need to add a TE number 6. We need to amend the plat note that the masonry columns to be brick or stone and at least 6 feet in height. So there's a plat note that says masonry. My understanding is to further define what masonry is, we need to amend that plat note so that masonry columns shall mean brick or stone, and that the minimum height shall be 6 feet for those columns.
Brick or stone?
And fence.
And 6 feet in height?
Correct.
Okay. And the other commitments that were made as a result of the zoning item being base zoning have been incorporated?
They're either in there via plat notes or they're in the CC&Rs.
Okay. 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 I'll just note for the purposes of the record, staff tells us the design of the preliminary plat conforms with the subdivision regulation as they relate to access requirements for subdivisions with greater than 200 lots. And obviously it was just rezoned R1. So the folks who'd signed up, I know a number of folks have left. Is there anybody who wants to be heard specifically on the plat as opposed to calling on people? Okay. If there's no further discussion from planning commission members on this or other concerns on the plat itself, I just need a motion to approve the plat subject to the TEs as amended.
I was gonna ask if we could have the pocket parks pointed out to us on here.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitza, 1 East Sheridan Avenue with Johnson & Associates. They are noted as common areas. They're in a lightish neon green.
I see them.
Yeah,
So 3 of them, is that right?
that's correct. And it was
Okay.
done based on a radius from the park.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, are we in line for a motion?
Yes, sir, we are.
I move that we approve C 7450 as amended, as with the by adding TE6, requiring that the masonry columns shall mean brick or stone, shall be brick or stone, and that they have a minimum height of 6 feet.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the plat C-7450, subject to the technical evaluations as amended and read into the record by Commissioner Pennington. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. And that plat is approved. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is item 24. Mr. Butler?
This is case C-7446, a preliminary plat of Wheeler District North, located south of the Oklahoma River and west of Southwestern Avenue. Variances to sections 3.4.1.a, 5.2.2, 5.3.2.a, 5.3.2.e, 5.4.2.e.5, and figure 5.2 of the subdivision regulations.
I think it's safe to tell you that your application is not in conformance with the subdivision regulations.
Would love to address that. Mark sits at 1 East Sheridan Avenue with Johnson & Associates. So this is the Wheeler District. Jared Martin will gladly help assist on some of these TEs. And he just informed me that I believe there's only one commissioner that was on the commission at the time this preliminary plat was initially heard, Commissioner Powers. And so while these are far from standard TEs that you'd see on a plat, they have become standard TEs for the Wheeler District development. If you've been out there, everything they're trying to do is rooted in new urbanism and neo-traditional planning techniques. And typically those do not conform with subdivision regulations that were drafted in the 70s and 80s, which is what we currently have. Hopefully with the new zoning code, we would not need this many variances, but today we do.
We also got a little bit of history. I think it was last meeting or the meeting before, there was an item that came through, and the staff report there provided a little bit more history on that and kind of explained that. So we got a little feel for that, even if we weren't here a couple weeks ago.
That's correct. And so that same variance that was granted probably about a month ago is one of the variances that's requested today. So we agree with all of the TEs. We do ask for the variances. We do have one amendment to one of the TEs based on a conversation with the Public Works Director on Tuesday, and that is TE8. We would ask that the end of that TE, we would add, or the Public Works Director. So it reads as it should be, that 15th Street shall be a public road. That's important because all of the streets, because of our variances, are all private in Wheeler. So because 15th is a section line road, staff is seeking that to be public. We're in agreement with making it public, but we would like to work with Public Works staff and the director to have a street section that is compatible with the Wheeler District. If we were just to agree that this be a public street, it would potentially open up the opportunity for a 48-foot wide paved arterial, which would bisect this and significantly impact the development. So all we're seeking to add on that is acceptable to the Public Works Department or the Public Works Director. We'll continue to work through that before the final plat comes.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Zitzow. Commissioner Govine, this is your ward, sir, so do you have questions for the applicant on this?
I've met with Mr. Zitzow. We've discussed the application. I don't have any further questions. He's done a good job here. I understand the Wheeler District and I'm familiar with the development principles there, and definitely agree that Southwest 15th should remain an open public street, which you've said it will, and that constructing it in the way that the Wheeler District's road section makes sense to maintain consistency. So I do not have any questions.
Okay, I don't have anybody signed up to speak, but I do want to ask, is there anybody who wants to be heard on C-7446? Okay. And I'll just note for the record, again, Mr. Zitzow pointed this out, but this is a very large master development, which is one of the reasons why there's an unusual number of TEs. And I think this is the first, I think it's the first staff report I've seen in a long time that tells me the preliminary plat does not conform because of the variances to the requirements. Now, there's nobody who wants to be heard. Are there any other comments from commissioners on this? Okay, Commissioner Govine, as a real act of torture, I need you to make a motion on each of the variances individually. And then after we take a vote on each of those variances independently, then we need a final motion on the item. So you can pick whichever one you want to start with.
Okay. Well, I move that we approve item number C7446, including the variances.
We need each variance on its own. So if you want to start with TE2, and just work your way down by reading that section, we actually have to vote on those individually.
Okay. So I move that we approve TE2, variance to section 3.4.1.A of the subdivision regulations.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the variance as read by Commissioner Govine. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All 6 votes will be needed to approve these variances, and there are 6 commissioners here, so you're cutting it pretty thin, Mr. Zitzow. And that variance is approved. Next would be TE3.
Move that we approve TE3, requesting a variance to section 5.2.2 of the subdivision regulations.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the variance for section 5.2.2. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. And that variance is approved.
I move that we approve variance to figure 5.2 of the subdivision regulations.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the variance to figure 5.2. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. For those of you on wood benches, I apologize. And that variance is approved.
TE number 5, I move that we approve a variance to section 5.3.2.A of the subdivision regulations.
Okay, I have a variance to approve section 5.3.2A. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. That variance is approved.
I move item number 6. I move that we approve a variance to section 5.3.2.E of the subdivision regulations.
Okay, I have a motion to approve variance to section 5.3.2E. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. Last but not least, after we get a vote here, that variance is approved.
Item number 7, I move that we propose a variance to section 5.4.2.E.5 of the subdivision regulations.
I have a motion to approve the variance to section 5.4.2.E5 of the subdivision regulations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. And that variance is approved. I just need a motion on the item with the amended language to TE8 as provided by the applicant, please.
I move that we approve item number C7446 with regard to TE number 8, adding the language "or the Public Works Director" to the end of the sentence.
And approving the balance.
And approving the balance.
There we are. I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat to C7446, subject to the technical evaluations as amended and read into the record by Commissioner Govine and the applicant. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. All votes should be cast. I need a break.
This was our parting gift to your last meeting.
Appreciate that. It's very gracious of you.
Yes,
and that item is approved. Good luck with the project. Next item on the agenda is item 25.
This is case C7452, a preliminary plat of the reserve on 29th, located north of Southwest 29th Street and east of South Morgan Road.
Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road. On behalf of the applicant, this is preliminary plat in conformance with the recently approved zoning. I've worked with staff on the TEs. TE2, we would ask that that be stricken. We'll conform to building code. Staff, JJ said they were fine with that. We do not need the variance on number 3. We will conform, and we agree with the rest of the TEs.
You will conform with the variance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So we're only striking TE2. All right, is there anybody who wants to be heard on C7452? Oh, okay, real quick. Commissioner Fraley, you have somebody who wants to be heard, but before I call on them, do you have any questions for the applicant on this?
I have one question. Is the road onto Morgan, the access onto Morgan still going to be installed or no?
We currently believe that we have an adequate turnaround, but staff is, being that fire is unable to be here, we'll defer that to the final plat on whether or not we have an adequate turnaround. Currently, we're just showing access to 29th. If fire does not agree that we have an adequate turnaround for fire, then we would have to build that access to the west to Morgan.
So is this just phase 1 and there's more phases? Or
It's currently
this is
the
it?
only phase that we have planned.
Okay. In the previous PUD that related to this, 1877, it had said 2 drives were required, or maybe it's in this one. It's in this one. Comprehensive plan policy subdivision with more than 50 units should have at least 2 points of entrance and egress no closer than 300 feet apart. So I don't know if that has been waived.
Does it not say that an adequate turnaround or a second point of access? And we, subregs don't defer to units, they just defer to the lot count.
Commissioner Fraley, where are you reading from?
I am on at the top of page 8. So it's the first bullet on the top of page 8, and there is language at the bottom. Proposed plat differs from PUD 1877, which was the previous conceptual plan. The PUD requires that a westward connection to Morgan Road shall be made within phase 1 of this development or an acceptable turnaround. So that tells me there's more than one phase, because the top doesn't strike 2 points of entrance or egress are not required anymore. It still says that they are required, but in phase 1, you don't have to install the Morgan Road entrance. Am I confused?
No, I don't think so. I think there's confusion in the report. You're saying there's only one phase of this project. Is that correct? This is it?
Correct.
So this is, phase 1 is the development.
This is the only thing that was zoned.
And so the question would just be to development services, regardless of the number of phases, whether 1 or 2, is it true that they'll have to provide the connection or an acceptable turnaround for emergency services per the subdivision regulations?
Yes, and what we're saying is we'll address that with the final plat.
Does that help you?
Okay, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. I have somebody who wants to be heard. I don't have any sign-up sheet, so I can't call you by name, so forgive me, but you want to come up and give us your name and address?
Hi.
Hi.
So, my
Welcome.
name is Maria Ryzhich, Ryzhich, and this is my husband Vitaly Agutin, Agutin. So we are the owners and residents of 2813 Fennel Road, which is our house is going to be right next to this development. And we do want to address some concerns and issues that we found, and they actually addressed in the previous hearing. And the petition was signed by 187 people, and it was based on some inconsistency that we believe are there with zoning and some technical requirements that was completely ignored, unfortunately, in what we see now. And I just want to point this out again because this is very important for us. And 187 people sounds like a lot. So first of all, I just want to remind everyone that the current zoning of this PUD 1877 is R4, which is based on the current code of ordinance, means to reduce dependence upon automobile transportation and support mass transportation. I want to say that we don't have any mass transportation in the zoning, and it's as far as we know, it's not even planned. And also by Plan Oklahoma City, the subject area is intense as urban low intensity. So I wanted just to say that the current number of the units on such a small load with only one entrance in the school zone, which is elementary school zone, in this intersection sounds like completely ignoring this technical requirements. So we think that by development, based on the development guidelines also at Oklahoma City, if they cannot provide the entrance to the Morgan Street, the number of units should be reduced by 50 units in case of 74. Also the issue with the narrow dead-end drives that are actually proposed to be 22 feet wide, except of 24 feet wide. So based on the staff, based on the staff report, this narrow width may also keep emergency vehicles from being able to adequately respond to emergencies in adjacent units. And also, as this zone being R4, by the requirements, the R4 should be distant from the R1 zoning, 60 feet. And based on the other picture that was proposed, this dead-end roads is basically next to the R1, so it looks like it's even less than 10 feet. So we just want to clarify what this green buffer, because these two things combined, the narrow road of the dead-end roads, the width of the dead-end roads and the distance from the R1 zoning, it basically increases chances of just bringing more danger in case of emergencies such as fire and other emergencies. So overall impression from this proposal, don't take me wrong, our neighborhood is very welcoming and we're happy to meet new people. However, we feel like they're trying to squeeze as many units as possible, just ignoring basically lots of technical and zoning requirements, and there is no proper reason offered why these exceptions should be made for this proposal, depending on the zoning requirements. So speaking of the balance that you were talking before, we are looking for actually to take a deeper look into this proposal and to make sure that it's just acceptable from the technical perspective, acceptable, reasonable, and kind of makes sense for this area.
Got it. Okay.
I want to add that because of a school in the morning, line from intersection from traffic light up is going to up to houses which we see on 29th Street. So this entrance, if it will be only one, it will be blocked
Completely.
every time in the mornings.
Yes. So this is an elementary school, and lots of people take sidewalks to walk their kids to the school, or the traffic is well known. We have evidence. Whoever is interested, I have this petition from the last time, again signed by 187 people, and we showed the letters from the school that the school is asking to help with the traffic because it's horrible. So this current proposal, just an increase of this issue instead of helping to develop our neighborhood. There's no need to bring more than a residential area can take.
Got it.
And
Understood.
My opinion, one interest is, it's not enough. Like,
It's not acceptable
Yeah,
in this area with this number of units.
I think any turnaround will not work here because if it will be blocked, if one entrance will be blocked for some reason, no emergency vehicle can't come to this area, or people can't leave it if it's happened like fire or something. So it's very dangerous. I think it's a big safety issue.
Understood. Thank you very much. What I'll just say, a couple comments on what you've said, and then if Commissioner Fraley, if you want to add anything, please feel free to do so. A lot of what you've talked about was talked about during the zoning case, unfortunately, which is when we were going through a lot of this discussion. And ultimately, that zoning case was recommended for approval by us and then approved at City Council. So all we're looking at today are the narrow confines of whether or not this development as zoned is in accordance with our subdivision regulations. And because the applicant has agreed to the variance, although in this case I don't know that the variance would be particularly determinative, we're told that it is in conformance, which means that that turnaround, even if I don't like it, I'm told as a planning commissioner that it is in conformance. And so if it's in conformance and I can't find a reason that it wouldn't be in conformance, I really can't objectively not support it. The conversation about a connection to Morgan, I don't specifically remember having that discussion, but I'm certain that we probably did at the zoning phase, I'll bet you. And so I don't know why it ultimately wasn't memorialized as a requirement. There could have been a whole bunch of reasons why we didn't do it, but I can't tell you for sure. So I understand some of your concerns, but unfortunately a lot of those concerns were done when we rezoned the item, and now it's just about making sure that before they can pull a permit, they've plotted that lot and it's in conformance, and we're told that it is, that it's in conformance with the zoning and that it's in conformance with the subdivision regulations. Commissioner Feather, you have any?
No, since TE number 2, it was asked to be striked, I would like to ask the staff their thoughts on that.
Sure. Jared Martin, I love putting you on the spot. You want to address TE2?
So if fire suppression is going to be required on something like this, it would be required at the building permit stage. It's served by water and sewer, so it's going to have hydrants as required in the subdivision. So when they go to pull permits it'd probably be the ones on the dead end streets. At that time, if fire suppression is required, then they would be required to do it at that time. So, does that make sense? Okay.
Help you?
And defer to permitting for if they're going to require it or not.
Yeah, and there's a long history there of discussion around that item that probably be helpful for you to talk about with staff at some point about that item showing up in TEs, and then discussions we've had previously about it probably be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you all very much for coming down. We appreciate
Say
it.
that there is no need to remember it. You can always go and see what the discussion and the paper, because everything is documented, right?
Right, within the PUD. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Which we're told that this is in conformance with, as a reminder. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And I just want to say that the requirements were either to provide turnaround or it should be an exit to the Morgan Street. And I believe you can approve it if you want, but that should be the note that it's either should be there.
And we got that address from staff, and we're told that before this item is finally platted, before it comes up for final plat, that they'll have to address and make the determination about whether the turnaround is appropriate, or they will be required to provide access to Morgan Road. So
Yes.
we're told that that's still an item that's open as an issue.
Yeah, how about the dead end road width? Because as per your staff report, this narrow width may keep emergency vehicles from being able to, I would advocaatly respond to emergencies in adjacent units.
And I assume that's why they have to review the exact turnaround radius to make sure that those vehicles can turn around.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last thing that is not clear to me still, the width of the green buffer based on this plan. Is it gonna be like reviewed later because there is no measurements on the provided plan currently?
So the open space would have been defined within the PUD. It would have stated a stipulated minimum requirement for open space. And that open space will be reviewed when they do a final plat, and it will have to be provided for as outlined in the PUD.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much for coming down today. If there's no further discussion on this, I guess I just ought to ask out of an abundance of caution. Anybody on C7452? Okay. If there's no discussion on this, and I think we're ready for a motion. If you'd like to make it, and we do not need a variance. The applicants agreed to comply.
Do we need to change the wording on TE number 3 or strike TE number 2 and TE number 3?
All we need to do is delete TE2, and the rest can be approved as written.
Okay. I make a motion to recommend approval for C7452 with all TEs except striking TE2.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat for C7452, deleting TE2. Please, let's see if it's seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Thank you. Please cast your votes when available. All votes should be cast. Commissioner Govino, he just voted. And that's okay. And that preliminary plat is approved. Next item on our agenda is item 26.
Item 26 is case PUD 1891, application to rezone 3223 Northwest 178th Street from PUD 1111.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who is also here with us. This is a PUD that would take the site from PUD 1111 to a new PUD that would allow for what we're asking for, 55 attached single-family homes, consistent with the image that you see before you. This was continued several times. We had one large-scale neighborhood meeting at a clubhouse at the Grove, which is the development north of the subject site. It was attended by both folks from the Grove as well as folks from Rose Creek. Commissioner Cravens had the opportunity to be at that meeting. We again had a meeting last night at 6 o'clock with a few folks from Rose Creek to discuss this. So I think it's important to note from the starting point, it is zoned PUD 1111. Under the tract of PUD 1111, there are a host of uses that we believe, frankly, to be a worse scenario than what we are proposing. Those uses include convenience store, liquor stores, eating establishments, fast food, gasoline sales, automotive and equipment cleaning and repairs, and fast food with drive-through window. So what we are seeking to do is to change the zoning to allow for this development, which is single family. It is just a different form of single family. It is attached single family. There has been some concern and frankly, I think some confusion about whether or not this would open up the ability to have a traditional apartment complex. We've tried to explain that, of course, if this were to be approved by City Council, it would be approved by ordinance, and therefore a traditional apartment complex would not be allowed. The PUD, as written, says 70 units. We are proposing to modify that today to 55 units. There's also been a lot of discussion about the pond that you see that fronts 178. So it is an area that's required for drainage, so the pond will remain. It will be cleaned up. So what we're asking for, and we can make it a TE, is to prohibit fencing along 178th where it is adjacent to the pond. We want the ability to have the fencing of the structures that back up to the pond to be the ornamental metal fencing that is see-through. The only stockade fencing we contemplate would frankly be along the west and north, those homes that back up to the other homes in the Grove. So with that, we believe that it is a compatible development. There was a lot of discussion about the ability to have 3 stories. We reiterated our height requirements, match the height requirements of both Rose Creek and the Grove. It is a traditional single-family style height requirement. The only thing we're changing is the ability to have attached single-family rather than the traditional 6,000 square foot lot single-family. This is a product that is very popular. It is a product that you're seeing with a lot of empty nesters. We think it's a product that is very compatible with this area, and one that is obviously compatible with the comprehensive plan. There are 2 TEs. I'd ask to strike TE1 in that there will be no dumpsters. We can add that language. We will be utilizing the city's trash service. And then TE2 we agree to. Again, we had a meeting as late as last night. What we committed to was no matter what happens today, we will continue to meet as long as possible to try to come up with some solutions that might make the neighbors in Rose Creek and the Grove happy if there are still concerns that exist. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and we would ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Box. This is a Ward 8 item. Just a couple things from me, both from the meeting that I attended, which I believe was in advance of the May the 12th hearing, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yep. So you and I talked about the deletion of EFS as an exterior building material, which you were in agreement with. And then we need to add a TE2, I believe, to limit the units to 55, right? Because that was just, I mean, in terms of making sure we're all on the same page
Yes.
before we hear from people who signed up.
That's correct.
So 55 units is what you're agreeing to at this moment.
55, yes,
Yep,
sir.
okay.
And then, yes, we can agree to
and
take
then
the EFS.
what do we need to say? I want to make sure that I fully understand how that ultimately wound up, because I remember hearing the discussion at the meeting, but I don't recall exactly where we ended with that fencing language. Would you just kind of, and does that need to be a TE, or did you memorialize that?
Well, I defer to staff. I think we should make it a TE, just in looking at the screening regulations. We need the ability to have the decorative metal fencing that is, become common. It's the painted black, kind of wrought iron style
Understood,
fencing.
but where at? Because it's limited in where you're wanting
So it would
right?
be, it would be along 178th, or excuse me, it would be in the rear yards of the homes that back up to the pond. Cindy, could you put the site plan back up, please?
Well, we can define that. I mean,
Yeah, so the
okay.
homes
So
that back up to the pond or are adjacent to the pond shall be permitted to have that ornamental, and I think down to 4 feet is what typically you see up against common areas. So I would ask that it be allowed to be 4 feet. And then again, no fencing along 178th adjacent to the pond along that frontage. That was a request by some of the folks in Rose Creek because of they enjoy looking at the pond, which we're happy to accommodate that. And then the traditional stockade fencing would be required along that west line and along the north line. Essentially, anything that doesn't back up to the pond would have traditional stockade fencing, similar to what all the other homes in the Grove have.
And that's what's memorialized in the MDS, though. So the only thing we really need to alter is this wrought iron fencing that's going to be on the homes that are adjacent to the pond.
Yeah, allowed to be
That's what
4
you're
feet in
proposing.
height and the architectural metal.
Okay, all right. And just for the benefit of my fellow commissioners, as he said, I did attend a neighborhood meeting. There was discussion from some of the neighbors about leaving that pond visible, so it's still an element for the area in terms of driving down the street and kind of some back and forth about that. So that's where some of that discussion on the fencing came from. So I don't have any other questions. I do have a couple people that are signed up to speak, so we'll hear from them here. And again, if you weren't here and you didn't hear me say this, if I mispronounce your name, it's not intentional, so forgive me. But Raphael Hedrick, please start out by giving us your name and address for the record, okay?
Hello, my name is Raphael Hedrick. I live at 3216 Northwest 177th Street, Edmond, Oklahoma. And I'm basically just going to kind of create a record of everything. And so first I would like to voice my opposition and Rose Creek's residents' opposition to the changing of the zoning. We did.
And Mr. Hedrick, just for the purpose of the record, are you the Grove HOA?
I'm a resident who lived there.
Okay, but not with the HOA, in other words.
No, the HOA president is
got it. Okay, got it. All
right. As Mr. Box said, we were at the meeting last night, and we with Mark Stone Cipher at Gaillardia, and we wanted to kind of get up to speed on everything. However, we were told that a lot of this stuff is pretty much going to happen regardless of what the citizens' will is. We would like to proceed in good faith with them, and we'd like to have a little bit more transparency with the city council on this. And so what we have done is we have submitted a FOIA request in regards to specific communications between Beacon Homes and its lawyers to kind of get an idea of what's all going on. And I brought some copies for you guys. There you go. So you may be asking yourself, why so much information? Well, when I was in Boy Scouts, my Scoutmaster told me, he's like, if you want to become an Eagle Scout, you're going to have to plan this out. You're going to have to develop it. And so that's kind of what all of this is. We also kind of want to lay some groundwork as far as for preparing for things, because we're not certain what direction this is going to go in. And so as my wife, who's an attorney, Melissa Hedrick, and Joe White do, they proceed in good faith and they move forward with them, but they also want to be prepared for trial if something like that should pop up. Also, I do have some questions, and I know this is going to sound redundant. I'd like a little more clarification on one thing. Is this the final vote on this issue?
It is not.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to make a recommendation to Councilman Stonecipher and his colleagues at City Council on whether or not we think this is an appropriate rezoning application. But ours is purely a recommendation.
Okay, all right. Okay, that pretty much covers everything for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hedrick. We
Can I
appreciate
ask a
you
question? I don't think I'm clear on what the objections, I understand objections to the process, totally understand that. I think I get that completely.
Right.
So if, with this proposal in particular, is it the density that's the issue? What's the problem with this development? Because as far as your FOIA requests and all of that, we don't handle those requests. So I hope you get all the answers that you're looking for as far as that's concerned. But the substance of the application, where are you on that?
Well, it's the Oklahoma's Records Act is where we're getting that information, and we have filed that with them. Our objection is basically we just kind of want to have transparency as to what's going on, so then we can ask the questions that you just stated. Because a lot of it's kind of shooting in the dark. I mean, I'm not certain exactly what all is going on. And so for us, we just want to have clear communication as to, oh, okay, this is a proper question to ask, as opposed to just, blindly throwing out things and saying, oh, I want to ask this stuff. Does that answer your question?
I think. Thank you.
Okay, next person I have signed up to speak is Cordell Irich. God, missed it. Sorry, man.
Cordell Eric, 2501 San Marco Lane. I'm here on behalf of Deer Creek Schools, and I know that last meeting, Dr. Perez, our superintendent, spoke. Our concern is just the density of this. We understand the commission's need to provide housing for people that are moving into the city, and Commissioner Penton, you mentioned advocating, and we've been doing that. This is just another way for us to advocate, as we mentioned before with our bonding, but just in general, the going to 55 units in there, and a lot of families move into this area because of the excellence of the school district, and so we just would love to to try to slow this growth down so that we can manage that and continue to provide that education for our students.
Thank you, Mr. Eric. We appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you and your district leaders' participation in our school meeting very much. So, Amber Knapp.
My name is Amber Knapp, 17917 Hasselmere Lane, Edmond. We back up to this proposed property, and some of our neighbors, we've been talking some of the same things that have been mentioned. With the school overcrowding, same thing that Piedmont people said, same thing that Mustang people said. The Grove Valley School that is in this neighborhood has already been redistricted a couple of times to where it's pretty much this neighborhood is the only thing that feeds into it, and we've added on to the school, and we're still outgrowing it, and so just the density, I think, is my biggest concern with that. As zoned, it would fit R1 about 25 homes, if that's what we were told, and so the 25 to 55 doesn't sound like a huge amount, but that could be a lot of kids that there's not room in the school for, so some of the same things that were mentioned. And the previous ones, I know you don't handle the schools, but that was a concern. Also for us backing up to the pond, we've had a lot of rain lately, and the pond has gone up quite a bit. So our other concern is just adding the concrete, adding the buildings. Is that going to decrease the marsh, the ability of the ground to soak it up? Is that going to make the pond get too high? It is really close to 178, so will that possibly make 178 flood or flood into Rose Creek? So if we could make sure that we look into that, that there's enough retention in the pond. So those were my big concerns. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your time. And Ms. Knapp, on that front, let me see if I can get you a little clarification so at least you understand. This will not be platted, correct?
So it could be. We could plat these individually.
But it doesn't have to be.
Correct, doesn't have to be.
Okay. So in our staff report, we do get a comment from Stormwater that there's no concern there. Typically, if they were to go through the platting phase, if they were to plat this development, when they went through final plat, the city would look very carefully at their drainage plan and make a determination about detention requirements. I don't know, or I don't remember, what happens in the event that it is not platted when that is reviewed. There are no comments in this application, but could somebody provide a little clarity there for the benefit of Ms. Knapp, who's been listening patiently to 25 items before her?
Barry Lodge, City of Oklahoma City Bridge Drainage Division. Even if it's not platted, they will have to come in with a site plan for their development, and it would basically be treated as a commercial development at that point. So it will still be evaluated for drainage, for detention purposes, and they'll have to comply with all of the applicable city ordinances.
And Mr. Lodge, that would also be, what's important about that is that in the, like, it gets looked at in the context of what this development is going to add, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That help you?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming down. That's the last person I have signed up. Does anybody else want to be heard on this item? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Okay. So, look, I went to the neighborhood meeting. I heard the concerns. I addressed my concerns with Mr. Box. I think the concession on the units certainly helps alleviate some of the density. This is an infill spot. This is the type of development that's going to occur here. I think some neighbors misunderstood, why I took the time to explain it, but we kind of walked through what would be allowed here, and I think what I want my fellow commissioners to, I guess, add some color to, so they're not just hearing that from one, was my position was that the uses that could be in place now, drive-throughs, automotive repair, things like that do show up over time as infill projects, that would be a worse outcome in my view, particularly for the folks that back up to this development. We take a lot of care and concern to do things like add a 150-foot requirement from a drive-through speaker, which we couldn't do here, and so in my view, I really believe this is a better outcome in terms of the compatibility of what could go there versus what's going there today, and I tried to explain that. It wasn't well received. Does anybody feel differently about that they would,
I think depending on the way you look at it, if you're looking at it, the impact on the schools, then someone may say a gas station may be better than a bunch of houses or,
Yep.
But in consideration of someone whose property backs up to this area, I would agree with you. I would want more residential than a gas station in my backyard,
Yeah, and then, there were some other questions which I feel like are really, so the applicant's committed to building in line with R1, so these are 35 feet, which is the same thing that's allowed to the northeast there in PUD 1111, and I don't see anything that's not compatible about it. I can't find any reason not to support it. I can't make a motion to recommend emphasis on recommend approval to City Council, or I would. I don't know if we need to add any language regarding the dumpsters for TE1. Normally, it'll say something like, dumpsters shall not be permitted except during construction when roll-off dumpsters may be used, or that's
So
usually
we can
what.
just do that. We can amend TE1 to be that language.
Okay, that is, and just so everybody understands, that's the standard language that normally appears in all applications for residential development, so it doesn't allow dumpsters except during construction.
And then we need to add a TE, eliminating EFS.
A TE4 for a limitation to 55 units.
Yeah, so TE3 EFS, TE4 55 units. TE5, the lots that back up to or are adjacent to the pond shall be permitted to have the architectural metal 4 feet in height.
Homes adjacent to ponds shall be permitted to have wrought iron fencing at 4 feet
Architectural
in height.
metal.
Architectural metal,
Right.
thank you. Yep, that's right.
At 4 feet in height. No fencing along 178th Street adjacent to the pond.
And we'll make that TE6.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes.
And with TE6, you're saying that it would be optional. It's not required that it would be the architectural metal.
No, he's saying they're not gonna put it up, and again, that was a part of, and I remember there being some conflicting views. So I'm trying really hard to put words in people's mouths, but my memory was that where it landed was that sort of the consensus was it would be better to leave that pond view open from 178th.
Yes. There was a strong desire by the people, at least on the south side of 178th, to have it
Be able to
open
view it.
and viewed.
So, okay. All right, so I hope that's clear as mud.
May I ask one more question?
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Is this not the 50-unit or more subdivision which would require the 2 entries into it?
Well, no, because we're not looking yet at the subdivision regulations, we're just looking at the zoning. So we're told there shall be 1 access point from 178th in this PUD, and we're told by staff that that's not objectionable. Yeah. So again, I can't make the recommendation, or I would, but those are the changes if somebody wants to take a shot at that thing. I'll help you.
I'm going to move that we recommend approval of PUD 1891 with the following amendments that I'm going to be helped with. Delete TE1.
That's fine. I'll fix it.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Does
No,
that not-
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
Add TE3, which eliminates the use of EFS. Add TE4, that limits the number of dwelling units to 55 units. Add TE5, that allows the use of architectural metal fences at 4 feet of height adjacent to the pond.
Yes. One more.
Okay, go ahead on the last one, sorry.
So TE6 would be no fencing shall be required along 178th in front of the existing pond. And TE8 would be we need to amend the language of 9.7 to eliminate dumpsters, but it should read dumpsters shall be permitted only during construction.
So we could just reword TE1.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, because your MDS says dumpster regulations, and then TE1 just wants to amend that to 50 feet. So I just thought we could amend the language in there so it was crystal clear what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, okay. I'm indifferent. I understand what I'm going to revise the TE to, as long as staff is comfortable with.
Yeah. Normally, that would read, dumpsters shall not be permitted except during construction when roll-off
Yeah.
dumpsters. Okay.
Fair enough. You said TE8, and I don't think there was a 7, so we did
Oh,
skip
my bad.
7.
Yeah, 7.
That
Seven.
may
We're all good.
Intentional.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe.
I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council, PUD 1890. Yes, sir. Please. And start with your name and address.
Rohit Agarwal, 3513 Northwest 175th, Edmond. On TE5, I think it was require the metal fence, whatever. Stainless
Architectural metal?
fence, not optional. Just wanted to clarify that.
Gotcha, so we require, is there consensus that require, right?
Yeah, it's correct. Just for the purpose of the record, TE5 should read, homes adjacent to the existing pond shall be permitted to have an architectural metal fence at 4 feet in height.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is TE5?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Were we amending that to say required?
Oh, you shall be required instead of permitted. Okay, so we'll amend TE5 to read, homes adjacent to ponds shall be required to have architectural metal fencing at 4 feet in height. Okay, and you're comfortable with that change? All right. So I have a motion to recommend approval to City Council, subject to the technical evaluations as amended and read into the record, seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And that item is recommended for approval.
Thank you.
You bet. Next item on our agenda is item 27.
This is CPA 2022, number 4, consideration of a proposed map amendment to the comprehensive plan, changing the land use topology area designation from rural low to rural medium on approximately 65-acre tract located northwest of Southeast 119th and Harrow Road.
All right, we're ready.
Great. The request is to basically to do a change between the rural low LUDA to rural medium LUDA. There is the application for zoning PC 10812. There is the location of the site. The existing LUDA is rural low. Everything around it is rural low. The existing conditions, the water, the parcel fall outside of the water services zone characterized as having potential for system expansion. This should be wastewater. The parcel falls outside of the wastewater connection area. The zoning, for the zoning is mostly agricultural. The dominant land use pattern there is undeveloped land. There is some residential to the north, but the average lot sizes are 5 acres. In terms of fire, the northern part falls under what is called the urban rural response time, but all the southern part falls outside of rural response time. This is a special area. It's an environmental sensitive area. Almost all the parcel is upland forest. The considerations to request to change LUDA designation from rural low intensity to rural medium intensity. The northern part of the site falls within the rural target response times for emergency services, but the southern part of the site falls under the longer than rural emergency response time set by Plan OKC. The area is not served by water or sewer services. The city has no expectation for future water or sewer in this area. The findings. The proposed rural medium intensity LUDA designation will be surrounded by rural low intensity LUDA areas. The city has no expectations for urbanizations or extension of urban infrastructure such as water or sewer in this area. The site is not proximate to either urban low or urban future LUDA designated areas, as is typically the case for rural medium areas. The site is considered environmentally sensitive due to upland forests on nearly all of the site. The staff recommends denial of this request. I don't know if you have any questions.
I do not, but I'll ask if any of my fellow commissioners do.
I think I'd want to hear from the applicant.
Okay, I assume that's you.
I don't know what you can get back. Do you have a zoning map for this area by chance? So this is a bit, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, for the last time. This is a bit unique in that this rezoning request came through, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and it was unanimously recommended for approval by this commission. That's fine, Sandy, thank you. What this map doesn't show, and if you recall, what I had was a large exhibit board that showed not only the subject, but I think it was 11 separate developments that existed in the area that were either zoned R1 or in a PUD that allowed 1 acre lots. Our request that you recommended approval on was for 2 acre lots. The timing's a bit clunky, but you recommended approval unanimously of a 2 acre subdivision, and I guess this is a bit of cleanup But it is littered with 1 acre developments in this area, as you will recall from my exhibit board last time. Oh, thank you, Cindy. So there you have the PUD 1454, the RA, and if you went another mile north, there's a significant number of them. Cindy, go to slide 8, please, if you don't mind. Yeah, so anyways, north of 104th, there's a significant number of 1 acre RA style developments. Again, we came in with a RA2, so a 2 acre minimum lot size, and that is now proceeding on to City Council.
Okay.
I would
Yes,
like
ma'am.
to respond to that a little, real fast. It's true, there are some development 1 acre lots, but it's important to mention that those are cluster 1 acre lot developments. The majority of those development did conserve majority of their forest or the trees, so that's why they're in compliance with Rule Law with the LUDA and the Plan OKC. The difference with this project is that it's not a cluster. It will not, it's not environmental, area. It's going to be conserved, or at least it's not proposed to do that. So the other projects, even though they're 1 acre, because they're in a cluster, that's why they are in compliance with the rural law in Plan OKC.
I don't believe that to be accurate. The developments that exist out there that are 1 acre are minimum 1 acre lots with public streets. This has been a rezoning case. I don't think a plat came through with it. So there's no indication at this point whether it will or won't be cluster. Again, it's 2 acre lots compared to a large number of RA 1 acre developments that exist in the area.
What is the real concern in a case like this where the comp plan is coming back after the fact? Is it that the fear is by lifting the current LUDA that it's going to encourage more developments like this one? Is that the fear?
Well, if we lift, or we don't lift, we change from rural low to
Right.
rural medium, we'll be creating like an island of rural medium in an area that is not adjacent or close to urban low. Rural medium is usually for areas that are close to urban areas that we're expecting that in some future we'll receive some water or we'll receive some sewer or something like that. Even though they're rural, they're closer to urban areas. This is an area that is very far from any urban areas, any urban low area. Is a very rural characteristic. There is no expectation to receive any sewer, any water whatsoever.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but my question is one of policy, because we've already recommended approval on the rezoning. I assume that's going to City Council? It hasn't been there yet?
Not been there yet.
Okay. It's going. Okay. So let's just assume for a second it gets approved. What is why would staff recommend denial on this at this point? Is it that you're just trying to discourage this change in LUDA to prevent changes around it? Is that the thought process?
It's partly based on consistency. So, and it is, I think, clunky, like you said, that this is coming now instead of a few weeks ago. And I'm not sure exactly why that happened, but I know the applicant submitted this later. So it was kind of a cleanup operation. But the commission has made, in some cases, I'm thinking of this one out in the Northwest, where the commission approved or recommended approval of a zoning application, but then recommended denial of the associated CPA, just for the sake of kind of making a point about, that was kind of allowing the development, but making a point about what the commission felt should happen with regard to the comp plan and some other things. Not to get too in the weeds on that case, but this is just about being consistent with what we've done in other cases, recommendations we've made in the past. There really is no precedent or nothing in the comp plan that says that this kind of thing would be okay. So that's kind of the hard place that, the rock and the hard place that we're in between, because as you say, the commission did recommend approval of this.
Yeah, and I remember this case, the 2 acres, which doesn't seem to be totally out of line, even what we see on the screen. But at any rate, we're not rehashing the zoning case. I just wanted to understand from a policy perspective, and for my fellow commissioners to understand, we're hearing this after the zoning. We've already recommended the zoning be approved. So on the one hand, it seems a little silly that we wouldn't approve the comp plan amendment. On the other hand, I get what you're saying, Mr. Butler, on, you know, I kind of sort of remember that case that you're talking about. Well, that wasn't the Piedmont one, was it? It wasn't
It's
the
actually,
Piedmont one.
there are other places actually not far from here. It was in
Oh, yeah.
Choctaw.
Okay.
It was in the same area.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just so I feel like I asked the question, why does this matter to you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why it's even on the docket.
But
Well, we received the application the day before Planning Commission, so there was no way we could have prepared a CPA for the actual day that zoning would. Actually, to be honest, we were expecting that they were going to do they were going to withdraw or something that day, just
I hereby
for the
withdraw.
CPA to come, but
It's not your application, as odd as that sounds. Well, I mean, it is and it isn't.
It is my application.
Well-
The engineer filed it.
I talked to them on the phone and I explained to them, and they told me they wanted to continue with it.
The engineer, not me.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm not persuaded that, I mean, I'm clearly not hurting your client's interest in the fact that they're on their way for a rezoning item by not supporting your position and supporting staff, in that it at least has the added benefit of not encouraging, you know, more of this type of development that may not be 2-acre lot, that may be something else within rural medium that you come back and use the argument for to get changed. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I'd be in favor of recommending denial. Does anybody feel differently? Okay, well, we'll take a motion then.
There's no recommendation for what it's worth.
Whatever. We're going to move for denial on this.
Yeah, I
think.
move for no.
There
I
it
guess,
is.
You know,
I have a motion for no. Motion for no that has been seconded by probably everybody. Never mind. Just kidding. I don't have a motion apparently. Paul, come on. I was trying to like do something cool there and blew the whole thing up. Now it doesn't even matter. Motion for no. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. All those in favor, remember a yea vote is a favor denial, to vote to deny. Please cast your votes. And that has been denied.
Thank you.
Unanimously.
For your consideration.
Sort of. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 28.
This next agenda item is simply to adopt the revised bylaws.
I read this in the packet and saw that essentially what it relates to is because of the change to Planning Department and Development Services. Is that a fair, quick summation?
That's correct. I'm not
Okay.
aware, JJ, were there any other changes?
No, it's just to make the change from planning to development services.
Got it. Okay. I don't have any questions. Any commissioners have questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the amendments to the bylaws.
There we are. I have a motion to approve the amendments to the bylaws as presented. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes. And those have been approved, or adopted, as it were. Next item on the agenda is the election of Planning Commission officers. We need to elect a chairman for the new year and a vice chairman for the new year. Nominations.
I nominate Mike Privet, Rusty LaForge, and Nate Claire, because they're not here.
Oh, that's the
Mr.
joke
Chairman,
that never gets old.
I would like to nominate Kamal Penton.
Okay, is that a nomination that you would entertain? Okay, so I have a motion to appoint Commissioner Kamal Pennington as chairman for the next year. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. We'll take it. It's a vote of confidence in yourself. There's nothing wrong with that.
He voted for Nate.
And you have been elected. Congratulations. Yeah. And now we need to do vice chairman. So do I have a nomination for vice chairman?
I nominate Commissioner Powers for vice chair.
I would encourage her to do that because in the event that a chairperson is gone, the vice chairperson has to step up, and there won't be the previous chair, which is third in line, as I recall, wouldn't be there. So it would create real stability if Commissioner Pennington weren't there because of your experience to step in. No pressure.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Powers accepted, so I need a motion. It's been, okay, so Commissioner Hinkle has moved to appoint Commissioner Powers as vice chair. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. Votes should be cast. And that's officially official. Thank you, Commissioner Powers. Next item on the agenda, actually the remaining items on today's agenda have been continued or withdrawn. So we'll move on to additional items, communication committees, communication reports, Planning Commission committees, nothing. Planning Commission members, Commissioner Powers.
Well, of course, I can't let you go without saying some nice things about you. I'm really sorry to be seeing you go. You know, there are not very many people that actually have public service sort of in their DNA, but I think you're one of those people. And you've done such a wonderful job. We disagree on so many things, but I think, you know, maybe the most important thing about this job we agree on, and that is that people who come here and appear before us need to be treated with respect and leave here feeling like they've been heard and that their concerns have been addressed, and through a very, very difficult time. You know, I mean, I handed over the chairmanship just at the right time. I would not have gotten us through COVID. I just feel certain. It was so challenging. And you did a remarkable job. You were really organized and, you know, just, you've been a good chair.
I appreciate that.
You've been a great planning commissioner and even a good member of the Board of Adjustment. So all of the above. We're sorry to see you go. You're going to be a real loss. We're going to miss you.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Fraley, don't feel obligated to say something nice about me.
But I am proud to have served with you and met you.
Well, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You
Commissioner
set
Hinkle?
the bar high.
Little buddy, you've taught us all so much. You've been fun to watch work. You always treat the people with great respect, and you lay it out to where the common people understand why they're hearing what they're hearing. And couldn't ask for a better friend or a nicer guy. And from me to you,
a jumbled bag. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate you a lot. Commissioner Govine?
I have very much enjoyed the chance to see you work in the limited amount of time I've been in this seat, but I think it's been 3 meetings, but it's been very enlightening. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. Commissioner Penton?
You taught me so much because I sat next to you when I first started. And people used to ask me, so what do you think about serving on the Planning Commission? I'd say, well, I sit between Scott Cravens and Asa. So as you can imagine, I hear the two very strong opinions on opposite sides of the aisle every day, but it taught me so much. And I think you have been such a model leader for the Planning Commission because of your empathy, because of your dedication and preparation, and because you are just somebody who models the way we want good government to work. You know, it's so easy to read every headline every day about all of the partisanship and all of the things that don't work, but every time I'm here, I'm reminded that when good people come together, we can still accomplish great things for our great city. So you've done that, you've lived up to that, and so it is hard to follow you because I think you're awesome. I think you're a great person and a great leader, and you've just done a tremendous job. So
I appreciate that. You'll do a great job as chair. I know you will. So.
Yeah, because I'm going to be calling you and asking for advice. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Planning Department.
We did have a resolution that we were going to read. Come on. Speech, yes. The formalities must be observed.
absolutely. Resolution of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission recognizing Scott Cravens for his service to the Planning Commission. Whereas there is no greater commission than public service, as it is a dedication to others at personal sacrifice. And whereas Scott Cravens faithfully served the citizens of Oklahoma City as the Ward 8 Planning Commissioner from August 2017 through June 2022. And whereas, in addition to his role as Planning Commissioner, Scott Cravens also efficiently and effectively served as the chair of the Planning Commission from July 2020 through June 2022. And prior to that, he served as the vice chair from July 2019 to June 2020. And whereas, in addition to the countless hours Mr. Cravens volunteered serving on the Planning Commission, he also served on the Board of Adjustment from November 2014 through July 2018, was appointed by the mayor as a member of the Development Code's Update Stakeholder Advisory Team, and served as a member of the Planning Commission Schools Subcommittee. And whereas Scott Cravens was committed to keeping business moving in Oklahoma City during a worldwide pandemic and chaired the Planning Commission during challenging times that required him to quickly adapt to changing procedures and led meetings by phone, virtually, in person, in masks, and behind partitions, in addition to learning and guiding others how to navigate new agenda management technology. And whereas Scott Cravens' experience, preparation, and participation in the review of development proposals has benefited the community, and his passion for making the best decisions possible was evident in his encounters with residents and staff. And whereas Scott Cravens consistently advocated for quality development and building materials in his ward and throughout the city, and whereas Scott Cravens holds the records for chairing both the shortest and the longest Oklahoma City Planning Commission meetings, and whereas Scott Cravens' fulfillment of his responsibilities was achieved with a heartfelt dedication to the well-being of our community, now, therefore, be it resolved by the Planning Commission of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Scott Cravens for his outstanding service to the residents of the City of Oklahoma City and wish him the very best.
That's great. That's funny. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm not going to offer that up for a vote. I'll just assume it would have passed. I'll just say, you know, it's my granddad loved Oklahoma City a lot, and he bestowed that to me unwittingly. I took that on because I used to come and sit and watch him, and you don't realize it's happened until it's too late. But I mean, when I tell you guys I love Oklahoma City, I love Oklahoma City, and I'll continue to serve Oklahoma City. But I learned so much from planning staff, from your grace and your generosity and your hard work, all the things that you guys do. It's really a thankless job in a lot of respects. As Commissioner Powers said, you know, there are lots of times I disagree with you guys, and I'm sure that I irritated you badly. But I have a lot of respect for all of you and the work that you do. And I just appreciate everything that you've done to make my job easy, from staff reports to everything else. To commissioners, I mean, it's funny. So Commissioner Coffey and Commissioner Highsmith and Commissioner Hensley are people that I served with that aren't here. There's something you can learn from everybody, especially if those people don't necessarily have the opinion that you have or see things differently. I learned a lot about the importance of protecting neighborhoods from you, Commissioner Powers. That was something that changed a lot. Planning staff changed my mind about the importance of connectivity. Asa Highsmith taught me pretty much everything I know about infill development and why it's important, and gave me books and memos and all kinds of weird stuff that he wanted me to read. It's a shame he's not here for me to pick on him. And just watching each of you guys interact differently and hearing how you engage with the public, it really did teach me a ton, and I'll carry all that forward into other types of service and in other places. But man, do I appreciate this opportunity to Mayor Holt and Mayor Cornett and Councilman Stonecipher. It was a wonderful opportunity to serve the city I love so much. And I'll serve it again in other ways in the future, but I've enjoyed this time and I've appreciated it a lot. So thank you guys very much. Are we voting? We should vote on the resolution.
I move to pass the resolution honoring our Planning Commission Chair, Scott Cravens.
It'd be kind of funny if I voted against it. Citizens to be heard is coming up. Yeah. Please cast your votes. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. And that resolution is approved. Next item is Planning Department.
Just thank you on behalf of staff and myself. We've enjoyed working with you and wish you the best, and thanks for sticking around. I know that you have a lot going on, and we're grateful that you were able to be strong-armed and hanging on for a little bit longer. But thanks for getting us through the pandemic. I know that was a tremendous help for staff as well. So thank you. Good luck.
Is that the longest meeting? It has to be, right? It was that meeting
Last
August. Oh, we had like
Yeah.
60 items. Yeah, that's right. That's the meeting that I'll always remember, though, was we had one that went until like 8 o'clock at night during the pandemic. And I think, I may have this wrong, but I think I called Sarah maybe the next day or something, and I figured out that because on every item we would say *6 to unmute, *9 to raise your hand, space bar. Because I had to say that every time, I added up. I said it out loud, figured out how long it took me to say it, multiplied it by the number of case items, and I was like, oh my gosh, that added an hour to the meeting. Seriously, it added an hour, and I thought, this is it. This is the end. This is where this is where it ends. We can't do this. I'll remember that forever. It was a strange time. Sorry.
That's why efficiency was in that resolution.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, development services. Okay, municipal counselor.
I don't have anything other than I also would like to thank you. It's been fun working with you ever since you were an intern in our office.
It's true.
Along with Mr. Box.
It's true.
We have got to see you grow and be a great asset to this community.
From potholes to ludas, here we are. Sewer backups. Those were the days. Okay, citizens to be heard. All right, other business? If none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Okay. Second? Somebody? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.